Today's episode is brought to you by Coal Creek Equine, makers of the best equine spa in the industry. If you want your horses to be world champions, you better put them in a Coal Creek. Okay, we're on the Uncut and Real Raw. We've got Dean Tuftin here. Dean, great to have you here, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Dean, DT Horses, we've known each other now for probably 15 years now, but more so probably the last, I'd probably say 6 or 7 years, we've started doing a lot more business together. I bought a lot of my good horses from the ranch, been there, worked at your ranch and so forth, but it's great to have you here. I wanted to kind of learn more about your story and what you guys are up to.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, Dean, let's go back to the beginning here a little bit. You're originally, well, for starters, for people listening, it's DT Horses out of Scottsdale, Arizona, correct?
Yeah. Yes,
okay,
sir.
that's where the main base is. A lot of the horses you breed are in Weatherford, but a lot of the training operation is in Scottsdale, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we moved full-time. My family and I moved full-time back to Scottsdale, I think 2017. So since that point, we've been training full-time there, yeah.
And where were you previously to that?
We were in Bend, Oregon for almost 20 years.
Oh, a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before my time. Yeah, a long time up there.
Yeah, well, I would say, 15 years probably. So, shortly after, even before we got married, lived there on the ranch, on my wife's family ranch, and trained horses there, and, kind of in and out of that, and, doing the typical ranch stuff and riding young horses and raising some Coriana cattle and going to some jackpots and rodeos and, mad that I wasn't winning and changing pipe and irrigation pipe and doing all these things, but growing and learning and actually becoming a better horseman generally. So my failures in the rodeo world kind of opened up my horsemanship and allowed me time to get better as a horseman.
Well, we've had some really good guests. I'm sure you're aware of it because you listen to the podcast, but we've had some really good guests in the rope horse futurity industry. And it's amazing how that industry is just blowing up with money, blowing up with quality of horses, but also just the quality of horsemanship that has changed in that industry in the last, would you say 6, 7 years or 10 years? Would you say that the horsemanship is really changing in the roping industry?
Yeah, I think it's been changing, yearly. I would generally say yearly, but by and large, it's just grown so large in the last 10 years that I would say the last 10 years we've seen the big changes.
Yes, that's what I would say as well. And every guest here that's been there, but sat in that chair that's talked about it, has said that they all think it's positive. You know what I mean? Whether you do the rope horse futurities or not, the fact that the horsemanship is just elevated every single year. Trainers are getting better. Horses are getting better broke, softer hands, more collection, just more precision. It just seems to be elevating the sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's, I go way back to the 90s, the early 90s when I first went to Arizona, and I was attracted to go try and compete against the best ropers in the world. And Arizona was kind of the hot spot. So, I was straight out of college and I'd been riding outside horses, and I'd always kind of been involved with showing and riding colts. But when I got to Arizona, it was just a different level of roping. The best ropers were there. And I went down with a preconceived notion that, everybody's a great horseman. I drove to Scottsdale thinking, everybody's a great horseman. And when I got there, it really opened my eyes because I thought, there are a lot of great ropers, but I pay more attention to the horsemanship side of it. And so really I ended up kind of searching for a little bit of a mentor, and I ended up with this 70-year-old guy that lived down the road that trained cutters. And I spent time with him, and it was interesting. His name was Gary Strander, and I only got to spend 3 years, and he got cancer and passed away. But I would go to his ranch, and I would spend all day in his round corral with him, and he would just sit there and watch me, and I would ride these colts. And really, to be honest with you, when I started, I didn't know really what I was doing, but he was kind of mentoring me and helping me, and I was very good at learning.
Yeah.
And I was very open to learning.
That's one of the things I like talking to you about, is that you were very drawn, and we're going to back up here to where you were born and get started, but I can tell the horsemanship part of it is almost a bigger part of your hot button than even the roping. You just love the horsemanship aspect of it, which obviously I get into because that's what I built my whole career off. It's almost like horsemanship first and the roping was a close second. It was second, but very close. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think at times I paid too much attention to my horsemanship where it actually hurt my roping, competing, because I was in the frame of mind of, I enjoyed building these horses, and I really kind of bought in with that aspect of it. And next thing you know, when I was competing, I was a little too worried about, as you say, when you're putting the foundation blocks in, and as I competed and got fast, I'd feel that block pop out, and oh no, I got to go back and put that block back in.
Yeah.
That was where my brain was. So I had to kind of go through some things, because I might go to a roping and, be really good on 2, and my horse just maybe wasn't perfect on the 3rd one. I can't believe my horse screwed me right there. Where did this come from? And I got to go back and fix this. And ultimately I had to learn to give and take a little bit to compete, but yet my heart was truly in
Yes. And
in
I
the
think I'm
horsemanship.
going through that myself, competing now in the cow horses, that when you step in that show arena, you're now a showman. You're no longer a trainer anymore.
Yeah, and I broke them into 2 people. I broke them into a showman and a trainer, because, and I feel like as you get older, you slide away from being a showman into a trainer. You're actually going the other way. But when I was young, yeah, put me on anything. I can catch on anything. Just get me out there, and I'll just let me run the wheels off this thing, and I'll show you what I can do. And now I'm on the other side of it, where I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Didn't you feel that? Didn't you feel that? Man, can't you see his hips kicking out? He kicked out a lead right there, and so now I'm older and probably a lot more trainer, focused on my horses.
Well,
So,
because you enjoy the process of building them.
yeah, for sure.
Well, let's back up a little bit. First of all, how old are you, Dean?
55.
55. Where were you born, mate?
I was born in Alberta, Canada, Drayton Valley, Alberta, Canada. It's a little town, north central, just outside of Edmonton, Alberta. Real oil town, lots of oil field, tough area, small town. But central Alberta has a little bit of ranching and a little bit of, there's a lot of horses. And Alberta, I always likened Alberta to kind of Texas. It's kind of the Texas of Canada. Lots of oil, ranching, farming.
Would that be the most horsey state, or
Oh,
do
yeah.
they call it state or province up
Oh, yeah,
there?
province.
Would that be the most horse?
Oh, for sure, for
dri-
sure.
Out of
Yeah.
all
Yeah, for
country?
sure, for sure. So really, I mean, we actually did a lot of jackpotting and rodeoing in Alberta. There are multiple rodeo associations. I grew up going to amateur
Well,
rodeos when I was
let's
12
back up
years
just a
old.
little bit here. How did you even get into horses? Were your parents into horses?
Yeah.
Was your dad? Let's go right back to a
Sure.
childhood. Where was your first exposure to horses? How did
Sure.
you get that bug?
It was really early. My parents both loved horses. My mom was a barrel racer. My dad was a team roper, calf roper a little bit. My brother was a bullfighter at the Calgary Stampede. So I kind of grew up in a rodeo family.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, and so I too, I was roping at 6 years old. So I was roping on a horse 7, 8,
Nobody had
9,
to make
10.
you. It was just something you
No,
loved to do.
I just obsessed about it
Yeah.
from a young age. I went to school, and and I remember even in elementary school, we used to have the Canadian Finals Rodeo in Edmonton every fall, and my parents would take us, and we get to watch a performance, and I'd bring the program back and learn, all the cowboys and their winnings and everything, and I'd have it stuffed under my books, and that's what I actually studied during the day. I knew everything. I knew where the towns were, the horses of the year. You couldn't get more information in a young guy.
Even
And
at a
that's what
young
I was.
age, you were doing
Oh,
this.
I knew things I shouldn't have known. I knew the states and capitals to every Western state, and I was living in Alberta because I visualized myself traveling to these rodeos down the road and getting to go do all these things. But at that time, there was no real team roping in professional rodeo in Canada. So it was an underground
calf
movement.
roping. And
Yeah, there was calf roping and steer wrestling, but team roping was not a major event at this time.
Why not?
Just it took years to develop it.
Okay.
Really. The rodeo associations kind of cast it off in the same way they're going through it with the breakaway right now. They're allowing it, but you can't be at the finals, but we'll let you buy memberships, and it's the same kind of crap.
Yeah.
But essentially it was run by the buck and horse contractors, and they thought the team ropers would be a pain in the ass, which they are. But they brought in a lot of economic value to the rodeos, right? So from a young age, I got to team rope, and I started going to the amateur rodeos. I didn't even go to a jackpot. I started going to the rodeos.
So
in
you're
the
talking
summer.
about in your teens? Or
No, I'm talking like I think my first amateur association championship in Northern Alberta, I think I was 12. 12 or 13. So I won some amateur associations long before I should have.
So is your dad, just slow down a little bit, is your dad mentoring you? Where are you getting your skills to learn how to use a
No.
rope? Who's mentoring you? Your dad, your mother? Who's teaching you? I know you're ate up
Yeah.
with passion, but talk to me about those early years getting started. Who's teaching you anything
Sure.
about horsemanship, how to hold a rope? Who's doing that?
I think I started. I think every year it was kind of like an annual thing that everybody in the spring would get excited about team roping. You know, we played hockey all winter. So I played hockey. I played ice hockey for 6 months of the year, but I obsessed about horses and roping. And the minute that the ice thawed,
So nobody's got indoor
No,
arenas up there?
not at this point. There was a couple.
Okay, but it wasn't widely used.
No,
okay,
no.
so you're shut down from what?
Right.
December or November?
October.
Oh, you're shitting.
Yeah,
October.
no, October, middle of October, really until about April.
Truly,
middle
you're
of
shut
April.
down.
We're
Okay,
shut
so
down.
horses are off the table. for
Sure.
you.
So then in the summers, you know, I would get to rodeo. But regardless, you know, we lived long summers. I look back on that, and it doesn't get dark until 11 o'clock. So lots of times, and we had a local arena. My dad allowed people to come practice a couple times a week. So we had our own arena, and it was a complete shit show. You know, I think at 10 years old, I would have been the best roper there. They were mostly just, you know, oil workers and guys, and they came there and they had terrible horses that they probably bought at the local auction barn, and the steers were atrocious and the ground was terrible, and they came there and they would rope and chase their steers and on their unbroke horses, and some guys would catch and some guys wouldn't. So I gravitated always to just, I was a very good observant learner. I can say that, like visual learner. If I saw somebody that was good at that moment in time in my arena, I would say, this guy's doing this. I need to look at this. How was that?
You could see what he was doing
100%.
differently.
From 8, 9 years old. But every year I'd go to a roping school. I'd go to Alan Bach roping school. There'd be, you know, generally there were
Somewhere
U.S.
there
guys.
in Alberta? Somewhere there?
Yes,
Yeah.
always in Alberta.
And your parents were supportive of taking you,
100%.
correct?
Yeah, they were super.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you said your dad calf roped, did he?
He calf roped, but then he swapped over to team roping. So he headed and I heeled growing up.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. So you kind of, they would take you to these clinics.
Yes.
Would he want to participate too in the clinic?
Sometimes he did, but generally I think, to be honest with you, I probably don't think they could afford to do it
Yes.
the whole way. So they actually let me do it.
Yep.
And then I just ate up information. I was just a ridiculous, absorbent kind of a learner. And I just obsessed about roping and horses. But on the other side of it, I was also kind of, you know, in 4-H and showing horses, and I was riding English, and I was, you know, showing Western horsemanship, and, you know, plus I was a good little junior barrel racer and different things that I could do. And all these things made me a better horseman.
So slow down a little bit. Where did you get your horses from? Were you raising them? Did you buy them from the local sale barn? Talk to me about how you were mounted and how that worked.
You know, honestly, I think looking back on it, I think my dad was probably really, he always loved trading horses a little bit. And because we had the local arena, people would maybe come and trade their horse in. And even at an early age, you know, they would come, and if they couldn't get their horse in the box, they'd say, well, I'll get Dean to ride it. You know, he's 14 years old, and what's he going to charge you? I don't know, $100 this month?
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, and I would go out there and get him better in the box. And so I think that started at a young age. But our horses, like everybody's, they were probably not very good, to be honest with you. But we did everything on them. You know, the barrel horse that I rode was quite a good horse, and had navicular, and we nerved him. But then I also heeled on him as well. You know what I mean? We would use him in a lot of different ways. And I think that ultimately we just mashed around on these horses until we really kind of got an idea of what the hell we were doing. We probably ruined everything that we had. But we didn't really start out with super feely broke horses. We started out with work horses, cross ranch horses. And really, if you look back, I mean, the stop, I was always enamored with the stop, right? From an early age. My parents had one cow horse that they put in training. And so it just so happened to be that, you know, I think I was probably 13 or 14. So I got to watch that process of that horse getting broke and learning how to stop and turn. And so I would go to the cow horse shows in Canada when I was 13 or 14.
Oh, so they did have cow horses.
They had one.
Okay,
they had one, but it was the only good one we owned.
Okay,
I think.
fair enough.
And
no, but I mean, they had cow horse shows.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Canadian Alberta Cow Horse Association. So I was quickly kind of enamored with what they could do with a horse. And then in my mind, even at 13, I was like, I need my heel horses to do this better.
Yeah.
And so I would obsess about it to a degree where, you know, I damn near killed myself a couple times in the arena by myself trying to figure things
Just
out.
experimenting.
Yeah, getting drug in the arena and things where just obsessed about figuring it out on my own, but really kind of, you know, my parents worked. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a truck driver and worked. And so I get home from school and I would, you know, saddle up my horse and go bring the cows in. And I had, you know, rigged up my grandpa's old dune buggy to pull the dummy around in circles and circles and circles. So then I'd jump off the dune buggy and jump on my horse and follow it around and heel it for hours until the
So
dune
the
buggy.
dune buggy would drive itself?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, explain this to me.
Okay, it didn't have a steering wheel. It actually, just like a loader.
Yeah.
It actually had a steering column like this, and so I would tarp strap it so it would slightly turn, and then I would bail off it and run and grab my horse, and I would trot around there and heel it, right?
And there'd be some sort of, it's not tied to a rope or anything, it just goes.
Oh no, and he had a throttle. My grandpa had a throttle, so it would go around there about 10 mile an hour, and after about 20 minutes, I'd have to get off my horse and go back because it would slightly go towards the fence, right? And so I would get back on and I would do that again. And to this day, I teach all my healers and everything. I think I learned the benefits of this continuous circling for my horses. I had softness in them. I was trotting for hours. And if anybody's anybody's roped and seen what I do with my young heel horses, I always start out in the slow trot at a circle. And I look back on that, I'm like, well, hell, that's what I was doing when I was 14 out there in the arena.
Isn't it funny when you don't have resources, if you have passion and you have desire, it doesn't matter that you don't have resources, you will find a way. It comes back to what Ian Francis always says. If you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse.
Yeah.
You were poor and your family didn't have a lot of money, but you didn't let it stop your fucking passion from wanting to do this.
DT Horses was founded with one goal in mind: produce elite performance horses. For over 20 years, we've consistently met that goal and raised the bar, thanks to our dedication and focus on what matters most. DT Horses believes that every horse we raise deserves the best start possible. With a great foundation in place, all our colts go on to excel in the discipline best suited for them. We have many top performers in team roping, cow horse, cutting, calf roping, and barrel racing. We're offering our elite horses to the public. For information about the athletes available, please contact the DT Horses office at 480-471-4348. Learn more about DT Horses and the impact we've made on the Western performance horse world at dthorses.com.
Valley Equine Reproduction is a premier equine breeding facility located in Stephenville, Texas. I've worked with the team there multiple times and had nothing but great experiences. Formerly known as the Brazos Valley Stallion Station, they offer everything. They manage over 45 stallions, including some of the most renowned in the industry. They offer mare care and breeding services, foaling out services, a recent mare program, sales fitting, and rehabilitation services. Plus, their Super Stallion Incentive Program has awarded substantial payouts. In 2024, the program paid out $1.4 million across the NCHA and NRCHA. If you're in the breeding business, you have to check out Valley Equine Reproduction. Visit them online at valleyequinerepro.com or give them a call at 254-485-8280. This episode is brought to you in part by Breaking Bad, the hottest new NCHA futurity sire. I see some comments online, especially in the last 6 or 7 years, Dean, where horse prices have really gone through the roof since COVID, that I see a little bit of stuff online of poor me. Horses are so expensive now, they've priced everybody out of the market. I say bullshit to that because horses were expensive when you were a kid.
Sure.
But if you want something bad enough, you will figure out a way. You'll go borrow a horse. You'll go barter for a horse. You'll go trade. You'll get a free horse. You'll figure out a way to get it done.
Sure. And I think ultimately you need to do that. I think that's where you learn to grow. You bash around on the bad ones and you figure out, how do I make this thing a little bit better? Because I think that's honestly when I have people that have money and they want to come buy a really nice horse for their kids, particularly, I go, your kid isn't ready for that. They're just going to ruin this horse.
Yeah.
They haven't really learned to really understand the buttons and really what goes into putting the buttons in these horses. And I think that ultimately we learn differently. We learn from the ground up. So we were just excited when our horse did something good. We were like, "Whoa,
holy shit!
Yeah, look at this! Yeah. Wow, I actually got a stop mark in the arena, And then I hope I get another one tomorrow." And that's kind of how it starts.
So,
right?
was there any local horse trainer in general that you did any mentoring with as a teenager up there?
Absolutely. Like I think I was exposed to some other passionate people. They maybe were a little bit rough. There was one guy, he's actually a lawyer now, and he's He's a big local guy, and I think he always had aspirations to be a cow horse trainer. His name was Art Trellenberg, and he was friends with my dad, and I would go spend time with him. So I was 14 or 15 in the summer, and he said, "You can come over and ride with me," and I would just go over there and ride, and we'd bash around on these horses, and I thought he was pretty amazing. And I look back, and he was very passionate about it as well. He wanted to become a true cow horse trainer, and he. I think he's a lawyer now, full-time, has been for probably 30 years, but I think he's still passionate about his horses and still rides. And so I started there. And then there's a young guy that, he came within one steer winning the national finals last year. His name is Colton Schmidt. And his family grew up about an hour north of me. And his grandpa was a great horseman. His dad was a great horseman. His uncle was a great horseman. And, I grew up with those guys around me and, spent time with them. They had kind of the only decent indoor arena within an hour and a half from me. And so I would go up there and they rode the best horses. Their horses were bridled. They were soft. They were broke. We were riding these things. We were in the wrong league and going all over the place. And I would watch them ride and they'd be bridled, heading on them, bridled. They were very broke and they had horsemanship clinics. That was Colton's grandfather. And I learned a lot by watching again. I was like,
It doesn't sound like you were a shy kid. You'd ask questions, correct? If you saw somebody do it, did you ask questions or did you learn more from just watching? Or both?
I think I would say 90-10. I would say I learned 90% of my stuff by watching and then sneaking home and trying it myself and usually failing, but learning from the failures.
Were you too shy, Dean, to ask questions? Because often as kids, we're a little bit intimidated by adults.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Would you think you were a little bit shy to ask questions?
No, I wasn't shy. I was kind of full of shit. I think, I grew up playing music as well, so I wasn't shy around adults. I was actually very comfortable. And I roped against these adults. I stood toe to toe with these guys. And some of them probably didn't like me at that point, but that's okay. But I did learn by watching. But then I got exposed to one guy, and he used to go to that same arena, and everybody looked up to him. He was the best roper, good looking guy, young guy. He was probably 19, 20, so I was probably 14. And his name was Darren Knapp. And Darren Knapp is still probably one of the greatest rope horse trainers I've ever been around. And this guy didn't even graduate high school, great athlete, great roper. And he's home breeding his own horses, raising them, starting them, training them. And he has the best head horse in Canada for 2 decades. And then he would come down here. He came to the BFI one year, he placed. Like, he was that good. And I started hanging. As soon as I got my driver's license, I befriended that guy. And like, he literally, when he asked me one time, he said, "You want to go to roping?" And I said, "With me? Seriously?" And I jumped right in. And I remember driving home, and I had missed for him at the roping, but just to get that opportunity for him to ask me was big. And on the way home, in a typical form, I was running through my brain, what did I do wrong? Why did I miss for this guy? Blah, blah, blah. And I know I was probably beating myself up. And he said, at your level, as good as you are now, it's all mental. And it was, what? I'm 15 years old. Like, I wanted to show you how good I was, and I just hit this steer in the ass. And he said, roping it's mental. You got to understand. I mean, I've watched you rope now, watched you grow up. You got to figure this thing out. It's mental. And it was like, still to this day, when we're in this 1987 Chevy with a 2-horse trailer in the back, and I remember that conversation. And I started thinking, how do I get stronger mentally? And at 15 years old, I started reading books. I started reading psychology books. I read Zig Ziglar, See You at the Top, and I just kept reading it and packing it with me. And every day became more positive. And every day, don't dwell on a miss. Let's keep working towards something bigger. And I think it changed my life. That guy changed my life. And how he was. And he's still an unbelievable horseman in Canada. He
stayed in the same area?
Yeah, he's still in the same farm, starting horses, barrel horses, head horses. And I learned so much from him. And then years later, we got to work together side by side. I hired him. I was training horses for this guy and selling horses in Calgary, and we were shorthanded like we always were. And I think he was rodeoing at the time, and he was pretty young. And I said, "Man, I got to hire another guy. That kid didn't show up, the same old crap." And he said, "Well, I'll come work for you." He said, "As long as you're there, I'll work with you." So we worked side by side for about 1.5 years, 2 years.
What do you think, other than him presenting the mental aspect of roping that you hadn't thought about till that point, what were some other big takeaways from his horsemanship program or rope program that stuck in your mind still to this day that were big aha moments? Was there any others?
I think
The way he fed his horses, the way he handled his
everything.
horses.
He shot his own horses. He started his own horses. I think the horses that he raised, and he knew them inside and out. He knew them, but he was also good. I could put him on anything, and every day he could make them this much better. He's one of those guys. There was never a blow up moment. There was, he was super athletic, super great roper, but great feel. But I don't think you're a true horseman until you've actually went through training and riding colts.
Yes.
I just don't believe that. I don't believe that you have enough intelligence and feel.
To how they learn.
You just don't. You just don't.
agree
And
with
this
that.
guy was 16, 17, 18 years old, and he was doing his own horses. And I think that he was far beyond the years. Plus, he was one of the best headers in Canada for 2 decades. And I think getting exposed to that guy changed my life. If I didn't get that opportunity to work alongside him,
It was a pivotal part.
it was huge.
So basically from what, 14 to 18 would have been the
Yeah, I would
years?
say that. I would say that. And then later, all the way up to about 22, 23. So we actually.
Well, let me cut
hung
you
out
off there
with
for just a second. So let's talk about you graduate high school, correct? And at that point, do you know what you want to do? Do you want to be a horse trainer? Is your dad forcing you to go to college? Let's talk about, from 18, you graduate high school, where's your direction of your life going?
Sure. I think at that time it was really tough to even comprehend somebody could make a living where I lived training horses, and especially roping.
Because it wasn't culture to spend the money to put a horse in training. Nobody had any money. What was it?
I think it was just tough for any of them to really build that. And I was a little bit resistant because everybody told me, man, you're a great you're a great on the horses. And I had already compartmentalized between, I want to be a roper. I don't want to just train horses my whole life. I want to chase this a little bit. And I'd had some success early roping. So in my mind, I thought, man, I don't want to get backed in the corner and just be training horses all day long. But technically that's what I do and that's what I enjoy. But then I would go on the weekends and I would go compete. So I would kind of, I would spend the time and kind of do both of it. And I think that
So at 18, what did you decide to do?
I went to college.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I went to college. For a
Was
couple
anybody
years.
pushing that, or you, or your dad? Or
No, my mom she was an educator. She came from a line of teachers, and she said, you need to go to college. And she was right. It was a great experience for me. The whole time I was there, all I wanted to do is go rodeo, and I wanted to go rope. So I went to business college for a couple years, almost 3 years, and I learned a lot.
Did you get out of the horses for those 3 years? or
No.
You took them
Heavier. Yeah, I was
Heavier.
heavier. I was heavier. I was practicing. I went to an equine college in northern Alberta, and I had some great friends there. I eventually, we were rodeoing on the weekends out of there and jackpotting. So I put myself through school basically with winnings.
Okay.
But also I would do schools, I would do lessons and things like that. So even at a young age.
for extra money.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm getting the impression the team roping in Canada is taking off now. It's
100%.
not. It's not like a redheaded stepchild. Nobody wants to feed it. Like
It was still in the amateurs. It was still an underground kind of a thing. Like we went around to all the amateur rodeos and the jackpots, and we traveled a lot. A typical weekend we would go to 3 amateur rodeos, but they might be 10, 12 hours apart. And we would go to those and we spent, most of what we won just traveling. But we learned how to win. We learned how to lose. We learned how to enter. I was always an organizer. So whoever I roped with, I did the entering, the trading. I took over a little bit. And so I learned how to do that. So when I went to the pros, it was very seamless for me. I had done hundreds and hundreds of rodeos and learned how to win. And
So let's talk about that. You do 3 years. So did you graduate? Did you not? Or did
I
you
did
quit
not.
halfway through?
No, I did not. I didn't graduate. And towards the end, I was not focused at it. I
Yes.
just really wanted to get out there and go pro rodeo. And I got invited to go to a big rodeo in Scottsdale. They used to have something called the Wrangler Jean Showdown, and it was Americans versus the Canadians. And I had a guy invite me. He said, "Do you want to come rope with me?" It was the top 5 Canadians against the top 5 Americans. And I went down there and I got to compete against the best team ropers in the world and felt just a little bit of success. I think we want to go around. And at that moment I said, man, I can hang out with these guys. I can hang with them. And I was obsessed about that. I just had to figure out how to get into that spot. And so months later, that's where I was. I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, the first winter I spent down there, going to
What
the
year would this have
jackpots.
been? Do you remember?
1993,
Okay.
I believe. I think I won a Canadian championship in 92. So I think it was 93, 92. And then every year after that, my parents bought a little 5 acres west of Phoenix, and I got to spend a lot of time down there. So I would be trading horses, working for people in Canada,
That's
and then I would slide down to Arizona
That's
for
what
the
I wanted to
winters.
ask you. During these years through college, how are you getting your stock? Are you breeding them, trading them? How are you getting better? Because I'm assuming your
Yeah,
horses are getting better too,
yeah.
correct?
Oh,
So
definitely,
how are
definitely.
you finding these horses? Where are you getting them from?
I got really lucky on a couple of them. I bought a couple horses. One of the young horses I got, I think it was 4, and I bought from Colton's grandfather. I rode that horse at the high school finals, and won quite a bit on him. And then I sold that horse, and I had a young horse coming up through the other guy, the cow horse guy, Art Trollenberg. He had a young horse that was 4, and I took him and I trained him. I turned him into heel. Both those horses were green. One had never been heeled on. I turned him into heel horse. And a couple years later, he was, heel horse of the amateur associations, and I won a Canadian title on him. So I really kind of built my own horses at 15, 16.
Yep.
And I competed on them. Sometimes they might have not been that great looking back on them. They had holes, but I was so confident in what I did, and I just kept learning that I kind of learned through the mistakes and competed on those
So
horses.
basically, buying, selling, trading is the way you're working your way.
None
through
of
this.
those horses did I pay more than $4,500
Yeah.
for.
See, that's another point that I want people to hear is that again, I see comments in the section of I can't afford it. You couldn't afford a great one either, but you built them as you went.
Mhm.
I had a conversation with Melanie Smith at Solo Select the other day, and she said, Clinton, my first broodmare was $5,000. That's where we got started.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And over the years, we could make, buy a little bit better, buy a little bit better, buy a little better. Could we start with a $250,000, $300,000 broodmare at the beginning? No.
Right.
You know what I mean? But most people want to start at the end. You got to start at the beginning.
Oh man, the beginning. I don't think you get to the end, or I think it's just like business. I think you have to have that foundation and those years of struggling to really understand and appreciate and also grow.
Yes.
I think that if you skip over those things, I think you're kidding yourself.
I always tell the students, because, that's where I've made my money is teaching people and students. I've always told kids this. I don't let the kids learn on the good ones because one, it'll come too easy because the talented colts just are easy. They want to be a good partner. They want to help you. And it'll give you a false sense that you're better than what you are. And number 2, you won't appreciate them because I always tell them, you got to learn on the turds. You got to learn on the ones that aren't talented, aren't good-minded, kind of lazy, heavy-footed, numb son of a bitches. Learn your basic skill sets on them. So that way, after 2 or 3 years, when I give you a colt that's got feel and timing and a colt that wants to be, hey, pick me, boss, pick me, you're like, holy shit, I didn't realize it could be this easy.
Yeah.
Not only that will the light bulb go off, but number 2, you won't abuse him. You'll pat on him. You'll love on him because you've been riding these turds for 3 or 4 years. Now, I do think there's a point, Dean, that if you keep riding untalented, bad-minded horses too long, there's a point where the pendulum switches to where they can make you a worse horseman because you get to resent them.
Yeah.
You get to hating on them. You get to resenting them because every day's a big fight to get it to want to try to be a good horse. Does that make sense?
100%.
And so there's a point there where I think if you keep riding turds, it makes you a worse horseman. But if you can get it to where, you learn on the bad ones and then get some good ones, you always appreciate a damn good horse.
Yeah.
Would you agree or disagree?
I agree 100%. I think that there's so much truth to what you're saying, and I think there always has to be a little bit of some time, some process, some sweat. You always call it wet saddle pads, right?
Yeah.
But it's the same with people. You got to go through that, and you've got to understand that. But I always seeked out information, and you asked me that earlier, and I didn't really answer your question, and I want to go back to that because, I would go to a clinic. I would go to a cow horse clinic. I'd go to a horsemanship clinic. I would go to a reining clinic after I won a Canadian title in the team roping. And I would look around and I would see generally women at these clinics.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody that maybe wanted to learn or had maybe said, Uncle, I need some help, and they're there. But generally speaking, I seeked it out.
Yeah.
And there was enough good horsemen in Canada and in Alberta at the time that you could get some great information. There still is. Look at John Swales. He's up there. He's pretty damn handy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went to Winston Hansma. I went to a guy named Dave Manning, and he was unbelievable. Les Timmons. I got to spend some time riding with Les Timmons. These are Canadian champion cow horse guys. And Vern Saperja, the Saperja family in the reining.
That's right.
You know, I learned from Vern Saperja. I went to a clinic and realized I just wanted to get my heel horse to drag his ass better.
Yeah.
And I came away from there learning more about using my legs and moving the hind end to even getting some lateral softness before I even started.
What I think it was cool is that very smart on your part. You were seeking horsemanship outside of the roping industry. Even though you wanted to be a roper
Yeah.
and a team roper, you realized there was other parts of the horse industry, cow horse people, cutting people, reining people, that could improve your horsemanship skill set. That's pretty cool. Like that's a smart asset that I think a lot of people are too frightened to get out of their own industry to go learn something that they could bring back. I've done it with my marketing for years.
Yeah.
Is if I go to other expos, yachting expos, plane expos, electronics, I go to other expos all over the country to get ideas to bring back to the horse world.
Sure.
If you want to be inspired, don't stay in your own industry. Get the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
You know,
I
and then
know.
bring those ideas back. So that was pretty cool there, that you had a natural inclination to get away from just roping and go figure out some. Did you figure out that the better your horse performed, better he stopped, the better he turned, the better he was in the box, did you figure out pretty quickly that could allow you to rope better?
100%. 100%. I learned, actually, it was really fortunate because I think I was about 15. And I remember sitting in the kitchen and my mom and dad and I, we were, you know, we would get to watch the national finals every year, whatever. And I was always, I knew every cowboy, every winning, every run, whatever. But we took it upon ourselves and we called Dick and JD Yates and said, "Do you want to come up to the house and do a school?" And they did. And I think I was 15 years old. And I know you know JD really well. Dick is probably one of my heroes.
Yep.
I think
That's his
JD
dad,
is,
correct?
yes.
Yeah.
And but they came up there and they were still making the national finals together and roping together. I bet you JD was in his late 20s. He was riding horses for the Lazy. He was telling us about the horse showing part of it. But really the one thing that I learned about that 3 or 4 days they were there was and they just hammered this through my head because I think I needed to hear it at this point. The best horsemen are the best ropers. And when I heard that, it was like I was 15. I guarantee you that 99% of the 15-year-olds, if you say that right now, they're not going to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wanted to rope and I still wanted to, you know, but I realized what they were saying. But not only that, these two guys showed up there. There was probably 20 headers and heelers and most of the horses were terrible. And this JD Yates could get on anything. He could get on the head horses. He'd get on the heel horses. He could just go catch every cow all day long, you know, 10 different horses. And I saw that. And I think my world of making excuses for whatever reason that I would have, you know, oh, I missed that one because the steer was bad or my header sucked, or I just saw a different light and I saw, man, I got to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
I just got to understand this better. And then later on, JD became a really close mentor of mine when I was rodeoing, and I got to rope with him a little bit. And then even later on, we you know, connected and he ended up showing my horses for a few years and we were super successful together.
Well, JD sat in that exact chair there, and he talked about how he went to learn from Avila, Benny Catron, those cow horse and reining guys on the West Coast, because he said, I had to get my horsemanship better. So he recognized it as well, even though he was dominant in the roping. There was a hole there in the how to get the horses broke, how to get them trained. And he gives Avila and Benny Catron and those guys a lot of compliments, where he lived in their house, slept on their couch, did whatever, you know, basically become their hired help, whatever he could do to be around those guys to learn that skill set.
Yeah, and it set him apart from everybody. I mean, for 3 decades, he's dominated the team roping in the show world. Even the first couple of futurities, he rode my horses and he won against the best guys in the world. We had 100 horses there. And JD was supposed to be aged out. Well, he kicked their ass.
Yeah.
And he's still kicking their ass because he's such a great horseman. And I think that he's learned to combine the two. And I think that's very, very rare. There's only a handful of guys that can really use their horsemanship skills, that have deep skills, not just on the flesh. I mean, I'm talking deep skills. You got Miles and you've got Trevor and, you know, you've got some guys coming up through the whole deal. And now these guys are horsemen, but they're great ropers as well. And when you put that together, it's a rarity. It's very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a lifetime of passion that chases you and directs you. And I think we're all on the same page. We're all chasing each other and we're all trying to beat each other, but we all can admire what each other's doing too.
I think it goes for any industry, whether it's the reining, cow horse, or even the cutting. There's guys that can really train really well, but necessarily can't show. There's guys that can show the shit out of anything and have
Yeah.
that ability to jump on a catch ride
Yeah.
and just hang it on out there
Yeah.
and really look good, but can't really train one or can't even maintain one.
Sure.
And then there's the rarities, Andrea is one that comes to mind, that can do both.
Sure.
And that's a very hard combination.
Yeah.
I want to take a little break here and freshen up cocktail, come back. I want to come back and talk about the chapter of when you decided to leave college and say, okay, I'm going to do this professionally, or that's going to be the start of that chapter.
Sounds good.
Good deal. Silver Spurs Equine owns and stands over 30 champion performance horse stallions. They strive to provide options to top prospects for every preference and budget. Reining is the main focus of Silver Spur's breeding program, and they have developed their $1 Million Challenge as an incredible incentive that offers huge payouts to the champions of 7 different reining competitions around the world. Silver Spurs also raises about 150 foals per year at their ranch in Oklahoma, and each one is offered to the public for sale. This provides a wide variety of options to buyers looking for their next prospect, and most would be eligible for the $1 Million Challenge. Find the perfect cross of traditional performance horse bloodlines combined with the modern dynamics of today's performance horses. All available prospects can be found at silverspurssalehorses.com. The last year, I've been using the Real Cow. What a game changer. Out of all the mechanical cow devices I've ever had, this is by far the best, hands down. What I love about the Real Cow is that it simulates as close as you can to a real cow. With its 2 speeds, and not only in the 2 speeds, you can control the speed within that gear as well. You can make the cow go away from you, make it come back towards you, make it arc around you. You can circle it if you're a cow horse trainer, or go down the fence. The versatility of this device is unbelievable. I'll actually load it up and take it to horse shows. Now I've got a mechanical cow. Wherever I want to go work my horse, I just pull it out and start using it. The Real Cow is an absolute game changer. Make sure you go to their website, realcowtraining.com, and check it out. It's the best investment you'll ever make in your cow horse or cutting horse's career. This episode is brought to you in part by Old West Futurities, where legends are made and records are broken. Okay, Dean, we're back after a break, mate. So let's pick up a new chapter. So you kind of do 3 years of college. You're probably like me. I hated school. I just kept thinking about horses. I left school at high school at 15. So all I thought about was horses 24/7. So I suspect you were in the same boat. What was that next jump? Did your parents give you any strife about leaving college? Did you go to be a professional? Where's that next jump that from leaving college to how are you going to make a living? You don't have wealthy parents, so you got to stand on your own 2 feet here. Where's that jump?
I went right to work for a guy in Calgary riding horses. So he was another mentor of mine. He was a businessman, had a great facility, and he was kind of known for trading, I would say, trading rope horses. I don't think they were really necessarily training them or thinking they were training. They were generally shipping horses from the U.S., taking them to Canada, and then turning around and selling them to the Canadian ropers. And he was an interesting guy and a good friend of mine. Dan Bear was his name. And he was very organized. In fact, you have characteristics when I'm around you that you remind me of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's very type A, very organizational, very witty, very fun to be around. And I spent years with that guy off and on. And he would let me kind of come and go a little bit. He would let me go to the rodeos on the weekend, and he was glad to have me. And super fun. We never had a bad day of work. And so I would go to work, and I kind of laugh about it now. And I started out, I want to say this, because he started me out when I called him. I think I'd won a Canadian title or somewhere in there, and I called him and I said, I heard a rumor you're going to hire a guy. Do you need a guy? He said, no, you're too good for me. I said, no, I'm not. I need a job.
Yeah.
Right? I need a job.
I love that.
And it was like, and so he said, well, here's what it is. You're going to start at $1,200 a month, and I'll give you 3% of the horses that we sell. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't have mattered what he said. I get to ride horses all day, and I get to rope in an indoor
and you
arena.
got a roof over your head.
Yes. And
he got you a place to live, correct?
No, he didn't.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But he started out on his couch the first 2 weeks, and then I moved to a lady's house down the road, and I lived in her basement suite for the first year until I could afford to move out with my buddy down the road. Okay. So, but I look back on it, and the first week when I was there, I'm visualizing just, man, it's going to be rope all day. I'm going to rope all these. And it was. But, He said, I expect you to be here at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to have your messages for you. You're going to know exactly what you're going to do that day. Here's your list of things. Sounds great, sounds great, sounds great. You need to feed, you need to clean the barn, you need to take care of the cows, you need to do this. And then when I get there at 1 o'clock, I expect the steers in, I expect my horses saddled. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And so I was so excited to be there that it was my dream job. And
That's
I look
awesome.
back on it, and I believe we sold somewhere around 70 horses. But they were like boomerangs, right? Because he would take trade-ins. So we had horses called Boomerang, and we had, he would get
Where
these
would
horses.
he would find these horses as rejects from the
Yeah,
States? Where
yeah.
did he find these horses?
Yeah, there was enough guys that were trading horses. I think some of them were traders, but I think when I got involved with them right off at the start, I think I was able to help him pick some horses a little
Okay.
better. So I would go get on him and I'd be like, no, this horse is off in the left front, forget it. No, this one's going to be tough. This one's I can get by him, but he's a lot tougher. And he was a character, and he would fall in love fast. If they had a beautiful mane, he loved paints, and he loved horses with big manes and tails. Well, that led to a lot of dinks, right? So I was riding some
Say
horses.
that one more time so people
Okay.
can hear. He loved what?
He loved horses that were paints, a lot of paints, flashy colors.
Uh-huh.
But then he loved horses with great manes and tails. And so he would laugh at this right now, but he would, oh man, Dean, look at this side. Look at the tail on that sucker. All right, we'll buy him. You know what I mean? I was like, no. But honestly, we had fun doing it, and he didn't claim to be a horseman necessarily. He was a businessman. He ran a couple big businesses in town. He would work in the morning. He would come back and we would rope, and we had fun. And it was hard work. It was just, I was there all day, all night. It didn't matter. I was just
And so
getting
you
to
would have
get
been,
better.
what, 22, 23 by this
Exactly.
point?
Yeah,
Somewhere
I
in
was
there.
exactly in there. So I worked for him 2 or 3 years full time, and then
What do you think before you move on from that,
Yeah.
what do you think your big takeaway, life lessons in that 3-year period, if looking back at now at 55, what could you say, man, I really took this away from those 3 years?
I think honestly, experience and feel of riding lots and lots of different
Lots of horses. It's something to be
Lots of
said for that,
horses.
isn't it?
It's like horses that you don't like, but make them better. The first day, I think first week I was there, I remember there was a paint head horse they couldn't get in the box. And he said, here, try this big sucker. We can't get him in the box anymore. I go, what's the story? I don't know, but he'll flip over on you. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll start here. And I just worked my way around for about 45 minutes to where I could score finally in the box. Because like any horse that was box sour, he didn't want to even go close to the box. So
Yeah.
I just worked his ass somewhere else, and then I worked him and let him rest. And I think that got me the job, to be honest with you. But I think I had the job regardless. Now that was a for instance. And then we had what was called a Buford machine. So we roped the Buford machine, and it would just a mechanical steer on an arm that would go around and around in about a 60-foot circle. So we did a lot of trotting and roping the Buford during the morning, and then when he got there, we roped steers. And I would say for the most part, tried to feel like I made every horse better. I always wanted to feel like the horse bought in and got better. And I think I cared about that because I think as I hired people, they didn't. It was just a job to them, a job to them. And I was hiring people at 22. I was 22 or 23, and he said, if you need help, find help. Okay. So I'm, trying to figure out who I
So
think
you
is a
got
good
your
horseman.
first taste of hiring
Oh,
people and what can be involved
At a
in
young
that.
age,
Yeah.
I'm just a kid myself, but honestly, I took on the ownership of that. And then I ended up hiring that friend of mine, Darren Knapp, and I learned more again. We got to ride all day long. And now I'm actually riding with one of my mentors and the best guy that I'd been around to this point in my life. And we're just roping on colts all day long and having a great time. I might head on one, heel on one, then he heads on one, heels on one. And literally he was a very high level roper. He was the Trevor Brazil of Canada for years. And to get to do that in that environment, and once again, we never had a bad day.
So basically, you're not necessarily starting a lot of colts. These are horses that are already broke to ride, but you're trying to make them better at either heading and heeling so you can sell them to the local Canadian ropers. Correct?
100%.
Are you keeping them 30 days, 60 days? What do you, like, as a general rule of thumb, is it a quick turnaround?
I think there were horses that were quick turnarounds. The easier horses were generally, or the quiet horses were quick turnarounds. But I think there were difficult horses. There were horses that were too much horse. And I think I realized quickly that everybody wanted a Porsche, but they really needed a GMC pickup. And then the other side of it that I started learning, and Dan kind of got me involved. He said, he would get Ricky Green to come up every year and do a roping school. He said, "Can you help Ricky do the roping school?" Sure, shit. I just like to learn from him.
Yeah.
And so I got to do that for 2 or 3 or 4 years. I got to be friends with Ricky, and just Ricky was just this social butterfly guy. When he put on a school, everybody left smiling and had a great time. And I learned that. I was like, man, you got to make this fun too.
Yeah.
Because I'm an educational rat. I want to, what do you got? Give me the information I need.
You're
and I'm
hardcore.
serious about it. And he was just out there having a good time, tee-heeing and joking. And I needed to see that as well. And because when you get people in that environment, they learn better and they enjoy it. And it's not just what they learn, it's how they felt.
That was a hard lesson for me to learn in the clinics in the early years. Is I think I was so intense that I thought people were paying me to make their horse better.
Mhm.
Okay, that was my job. They're here for 3 days. I got to get this son of a bitch as good as it possibly can. So I think in the beginning years I was a little bit too drill sergeant, a little bit up their ass. Come on, people, get your fucking act together. We got shit to do. I only got
Yeah.
3 days here. And then I finally figured out, yes, they do want their horse to get better, but more than anything, it's an experience for them.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to make it a little bit more fun. I had to learn to not get so wound up if this lady's doing a half-assed job of flexing it and not really putting in the effort.
Yeah.
Don't rip her ass. If she's fucking happy with a half-hearted result,
Yeah.
let it be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%.
So I had to learn that the hard way, that they all don't want to be fucking professional horse trainers.
Yeah.
They all don't want to be really good at training. They just come to get a little bit of experience, make their horse a little better, and maybe have a good time.
Sure.
So I know what you're talking about. I had to soften myself up a little bit there because I got the wrong goal.
Yeah. And what I found out quickly when I started helping people is they would come for a roping school, but I'd end up giving them a horsemanship lesson on the side. And that's really where my specialty really kind of happened. I'd be like, okay, hold on. We got to get in the correct lead and get our horses framed up here remote, somewhat where we can get close enough to catch the cow. Meanwhile, Ricky would be telling them they needed power of team roping and swing over here. I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
Your horse is running off in the wrong lead with his nose to the right. How are you going to catch this cow? So I was really kind of enamored with how you blend the horsemanship in, but also really, really obsessed about that piece of it for me.
So you stay there for 3 years. You get a lot of experience riding a lot of different horses, maybe not the greatest quality horses, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
Where do you go from that job?
Well, then I went directly to Arizona. I told Dan, I said, Dan, I love you, buddy. And and he said, I'll build you a house here. I remember him saying that. He said, I'll build you a house. Please don't go. And I said, I want to go to Arizona and I want to see if I can make the national finals team rope. And at this point, it was just a dream because no Canadian had been there. Nobody had ever really, there'd been a few of my buddies that had tried, but it was so difficult to make the national finals because it was such a big jump and a commitment.
So you're telling me up to that point, nobody from Canada ever made the NFR finals?
No.
That's amazing. I didn't know.
No team ropers had. Yeah. So that was really my dream. And it was a bit of a far-fetched dream. And so then I ended up going straight to Arizona and just spending so much time down there and once again starting to learn from some different mentors.
So were you working for yourself or did you
myself.
get a job?
Riding outside horses and doing
this
lessons.
is on your parents' 5 acres.
Yes.
They bought 5 acres.
Yes.
So you set up shop down there.
Yes.
How do you even get customers if anybody doesn't know who
Canadians.
you are?
Always Canadians.
Always Canadian.
Yeah, they come down, they enjoy it, and they'd have, usually most of them would have one good horse and one dink. And then I would get helping them with their bad horse.
Okay.
And I would give them advice. Or, a lot of these guys called me coach, right?
Okay.
So they would come in there and they'd spend time and I'd give them a lesson and vice versa. And then I ran into this crazy guy that came to me at a roping and he introduced himself to me. And he said, hi, I'm Ivan Muxlow. And he's this short, stumpy guy, German guy. And he owned a dairy in British Columbia. He said, I've heard about you. I want to come for a lesson. I said, sure, come on over. So he came on over, and it turned out that I learned so much more from him than I ever taught him.
Okay.
And he was a dairy farmer, but he was a businessman, but he was a guy that was obsessed about being a better horseman. So he came to me, and I'm sure, unfortunately he's passed now, but he came to me and we were body shaving our horses at this time in Arizona because we had these Canadian horses. So he drives in and he says, man, my horse, why are you guys doing that? Well, we can run more steers. Our horses don't sweat up. Well, can I do that with my horse? I said, sure. So we body shave his horse, takes a couple hours. We forget to tell him that sometimes they'll buck, right? I just
What do you
met
mean
this
they'll
guy.
buck?
They'll buck your ass off.
When you ride
You're
them?
damn right.
You shit me. I've
You're
never
damn
heard
right.
of
If
that.
you body shave them, I don't know whether it's the hair, moves on their saddle or whatever.
Yeah.
And my poor buddy, he goes out there on the first steer and this horse cuts loose and he goes straight over the edge and he lands right on his bald head, rips all the skin off. He got bucked off so hard that we found his boot heels and his spurs somewhere out in the arena. And I thought we killed him.
I never heard of that,
Yeah.
Dean.
Oh, no,
just
we
to
did him a big
clarify,
favor.
If you body shave a horse and then you go saddle them straight
Yes,
after
we
it,
had
it's
several that did it.
It's the different feel on their
Yes.
back that
Yes.
they'll buck sometimes.
Yes.
I never heard of that in my whole career.
And so, but we did that because we had all these long-haired Canadian horses, and we were like, well, if we shave them, we can rope on them more, right?
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
ride them more. So that was my introduction to this poor guy, and I'm like, I think I killed him, but I didn't. And then he ended up actually.
So he gets up and
he
he's
gets
in good
up,
spirits.
wipes himself off, stays roping with me, and then we became friends. And he was this crazy guy that I always he was a very much a knowledge seeker. He was a guy that went spend a week with Pat Pirelli, spend a week with Al Dunning, and he literally was a dairy farmer, but he got caught up in this horsemanship thing like us,
Yeah.
and he became obsessed. And so I got to know him a little bit, and then he said, would you come out and do a school at my place in British Columbia? I said, sure, sounds good. So I did that a couple times, and I went up there and traveled up there, and I eventually went and worked for him in the summers, a couple summers.
Up there in British
Yes,
Columbia. Okay.
yes, I worked in the feedlots, so we would ride these colts in the morning in the feedlot, and then we'd rope on them in the afternoon. And he had these dairy calves. He had 1,200 dairy calves. So we would treat, hoof rot, pink eye on these colts, and we just keep them saddled all day long. But he taught me so many drills, crazy stuff like you're teaching me, learning the 5 body parts, moving them around. And he said, man, if I had your feel and I had your ability, he said, it's just so easy for you. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But he was the first guy that I ever ran into that would not accept me observing learning. He'd say, here, get on, do it. Try it on this one.
Yeah.
And he would be backing him up. And, there would be people warming up in an arena, and he would literally be the guy backing up and doing a backups, or while people are going around him. And he was running speed control and hauling ass, and then he'd bring him back down and keep him in lead. And I thought he was just crazy. I literally thought he was crazy until I started riding his horses. And I'm like, these horses are easy to catch on. I don't even know what he did. And then I started learning more and more and more. So as we spent years together, he would spend time with me in Arizona. I would spend time with him. But I learned so much about general horsemanship and just speed control.
So
the
he
5 body
was a
parts.
horsemanship junkie then.
100%.
Right.
And right to his death.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he got liver cancer. And so I spent about 6-7 years with him, I would say, maybe 8.
Every summer you'd go back.
And he would spend time with me in Arizona too.
So he kind of kept you on a salary then, or how did he pay
He
you?
paid me $10 an hour to work in the feedlot.
Right.
And charged me to keep my horses there and charged me to stay in his pool house. And
That's how
it
he got
was
all
fun.
that money.
That's right. It was not dumb. But I learned once again more from him than he ever taught me.
So this would have been what, 23 to 27?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not. Are you rodeoing much in this time? Are you going to a lot of jackpots?
Amateur
Where are you?
rodeos, a
Where
little bit.
are-
I'm kind of jumping around a little bit because I'm getting a little bit of taste of some of the pro rodeos, and I get a little win and, win during some winter rodeos, and then I'd feel like, I'm broke. I need to go to Canada and go to work and do some schools. Because schools, I always felt like I was a good communicator, so schools were always a quick way for me to make a couple $1,000 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple $1,000 for me means I can go to the amateur and I win another 1,000, so I'm good for a week.
Yeah, you're just trying to get from week to week.
I just was. I mean, that's how I thought, and unfortunately, that got me back down. And we reached a point. I'd been healing, and I'd felt really successful healing to some degree in Canada, but down here it was a struggle. And
Why was it a struggle down here? What was the difference in when you came down to America to heal?
I think I hadn't committed. I think the commitment to staying down here and just toughing it out, I didn't do it. I would go a little bit and then I can go home and make some money. And I kept bouncing back and forth a little
You
bit.
think your attention was spread a little bit?
I think also I was a Canadian citizen, so I could only spend 6 months
Good point.
here. So I was kind of stuck a little bit, right?
I always have this saying, when everything's important, nothing's important. When you get spread too thin, Like I had a guy, I'm not going to say his name, didn't give me permission, but he's in the cutting horse industry. He's really hot right now. And he called me. I started a cult for him and got to build a bit of a friendship with him. And he called me and he said, Clinton, I'm thinking about doing videos and doing a subscription and doing this and that and some clinics. And what do you think? He said, you're the best at it. What do you think? And I said, I think that's a bad idea. And he said, why? And I said, you're about number one right now. When something's working, don't fucking change.
Yeah.
Stay what you're doing. You're kicking everybody's ass right now. You start getting pulled away, videos over here, clinics over here, advertising over here, social media. You start getting pulled away.
Yeah.
Now you're not focused anymore.
Yeah.
So I said, right now, if you want to keep winning, stay. I'm really big about whatever you're doing when you're winning, stay there. Don't get diverted off. And it's easy when sponsors are pulling you here, videos over here, clinics over here. When you get pulled too many different directions, Dean, you're not focused anymore.
Oh, I think I was guilty of that as well. You know, I always had this other, it wasn't a passion. My passion was always horses. It was always my obsession and passion was horses. But I had this little bit of a talent to sing.
Yeah.
And I could always go sing. And so I always felt like, I'm probably going to end up singing. At some point, I'm going to end up on stage and I'm going to sing and I'm going to do this. And that's actually going to pay the bills. But for now, I'm riding horses. I'm going to figure this out. And so, I always felt like I was going to end up there. And so I was kind of the guy that would compete at the jackpots, compete at the rodeos. And then at night, I'd be singing around the campfire, or singing at the bar or whatever. And I always felt like, okay, I'm not sure what the hell I am. Am I a singer? Am I a roper? Am I,
Clinician?
Yeah. Am I a clinician? Am
So
I
I'm
an
a little
educator?
confused
What
then.
am I?
I'm a little confused then, because when you said you had a dream to be the first team roper to make the NFR, and you moved to Arizona because you wanted to get focused. What stopped that dream? Like, why did you get off that tangent, do you think?
Well, I think
or that
commitment.
mindset?
I think commitment. I couldn't quite get. I'd done it enough to realize I had a little bit of success, but I realized that it was really a header's game, and so I was a healer. So if you think about this, the header, in my opinion, is a quarterback. The healer is a receiver, and we look at it, we go, well, anybody can be a great receiver, but it's really about being a great quarterback. And so, but the great headers were great horsemen in my mind. And so I got around to Ivan a little bit, and the more I was around him, he said to me, you're kind of struggling. Why don't you head? As good as a horseman as you are, and as good as you head, why don't you head? I just spent 20 years trying to be the best healer I can be. Are you kidding me right now? And I kind of let it kind of sink in a little bit. And then I spent about two months around Speedy Williams, the year before he won his first gold buckle. And I watched him prepare, and I got to hang out with him, and I practiced with him and Rich.
In Arizona then?
No, actually at the rodeos, kind of in the Northwest.
Okay.
So I went to a few rodeos, and we ended up being really good friends, Rich and I especially. And Rich would go home a little bit. He'd go back and forth to Texas.
Who's Rich?
Rich Skelton was Speedy Williams' partner.
Okay.
So Speedy was this amazing kind of uprising header, and everybody knew where he was headed, but he was kind of great before his time. He was the guy. And right on the verge of taking this thing over. It was 1997. And I went to a few rodeos, got to hang out with these guys, and we got to practice with them every day. And I watched this Speedy practice, and honestly, I was convinced that there's nobody I've ever roped with that's ever going to take me and beat this guy. I need to start heading, and I'm going to turn my game around. And I think I told people that in the fall of 97, and in 98, I bought a head horse. I started going to the rodeos in March, and I ended up in the top 25 in the world by the end of the year. I'd never headed in my life. I didn't tell anybody that.
Transition?
No, not really, because I was a good horseman, and I got a good horse, and I was patient, and had a chance. And in fact, my partner, I damn near got him to the NFR that year. And so I kind of switched 100%. And then I started getting a little bit of notoriety in the top 15 in the world. They knew who I was heading. I said, you suckers, I've been alongside you here for a few years. You didn't even know I was in the parking lot. And now I'm heading, and I beat you a little bit. And now you guys think I'm a decent header.
Yeah.
And I'm faking it.
Yeah.
I'm out here faking it. I'm just a good horseman, and I can kind of head. So I really, really worked on it. But as I was doing this, I was doing all Ivan's backup warm-ups, speed control warm-ups. I'm out there in the parking lot in my snaffle bit on my head horse, and then into the slack.
And back in this day, everybody, especially in the team roping industry, probably thought you were a lunatic doing this, correct?
Crazy.
Because I couldn't imagine nobody else was doing this.
No, nobody. And so really I was kind of the only Canadian out there. There's another friend of mine, Marty Becker, is an unbelievable talent. And he was out there, but mostly calf roping. So he and I really ended up being the only two out on the PRCA circuit, Canadians at this time, going to all these rodeos, right? And I'm heading and, thinking now I've totally switched my aspiration. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the NFR as a header. So that was kind of the goal that I started chasing. So for 2 years, I kind of hovered around that top 15, top 20, but couldn't make it. And I just realized, kind of like we talked about the horsemanship earlier, I said, I'm not good enough. I didn't spend enough years building my foundation, having a process. I have nothing to fall back on because I really built a process and foundation healing. And I'm a great healer and I understand it. I know right where my loop's going. I know every piece about it. But heading, I'm kind of out here faking it a little bit. And I think I caught myself a little bit, and I had a good conversation with Speedy the end of my second year, and he said, why are you not healing? He said, as good as you heal, why aren't you healing? I said, I wish you had told me that 2 years ago, right? You sucker. And he said, I'll get you a partner. Right. So I went to the winter rodeos, and I roped with one of his good friends from Florida, TJ Smith, and I went back out there again, and we got our asses kicked. Caught a few good steers, but got our asses kicked. And I folded up and said, you know what? I'm going to be a horseman. I'm changing everything.
If you're into rope horses and you want to see where the best of the best really show up, Old West Futurities is where it's at. Big time horses, serious competition, and some of the biggest payouts you'll find anywhere. Old West Futurities is where reputations are made. So whether you're looking to compete, shop for your next standout horse, or just sit back and watch top tier talent, don't miss it. Head over to oldwest.com to check it out.
Their hearts thunder for us. Their flesh and bone pushed to lift us higher, carry us faster, and stop on a dime. And when they've had a great ride, they deserve a great recovery. They deserve a Cold Creek. Cold Creek Spas offer state-of-the-art 35-degree aerated saltwater therapy, proven to reduce injury, speed recovery, and keep them at peak performance. Cold Creek Therapeutic Spas. This water is for winners.
This episode is brought to you in part by Silver Spurs Equine, home of the $1 million challenge. Just stop there. Why did you get your ass kicked? Meaning, did you not have the stock? Were you not practicing enough?
Yeah.
Was it a different style? Talk to me about what was causing you to get your ass kicked. Like, break that down a little bit. Was it a lack of focus? Was it a lack of horsepower? Was it a lack of practice?
Every piece of that, that you said, every piece of that is why we failed. In looking back on it, we didn't have great horses. He had an old head horse that was wore out. I had an old heel horse that was wore out. We headed off to Denver and Rapid City, and I didn't have enough Banamine or Butte to get my horse to get through that situation. And unfortunately, then I ended up back at Speedy and Rich's all winter, and I ended up riding everything they had. I had a young horse, I'm practicing all week long and riding young horses all week long. Think about this. I'm riding colts at Rich's, dinking around all week, and then we go to the rodeo at San Antonio night. Am I going to be successful? No, I'm not preparing to go beat the best guys in the world. I'm just fixing everybody's horses for them out back. And I was kind of doing that, and I reached a point, and my wife and I were just dating.
Stage? How old are you now?
I would have been 28.
Are you married at this point?
No.
Not married?
No,
Okay.
serious with my wife.
Okay, so where did you meet your wife?
Yeah, at the Pendleton Roundup in the Letterbuck room. I met her in the famous bar under the grandstand after Slack. One of her friends introduced me to her, and we just BS'd and kind of hit it off a little bit. But she ended up, the second year, 1999, I roped with a guy named Dugan Kelly. And Dugan was a great guy, great roper, went to the NFR several times. Just a wonderful guy to be around, fun. And we went and kind of hovered around that top 15, got close in spots, but once again, didn't make it. And I started kind of trying to figure out what my future was.
Are you still stealing from Peter to pay Paul financially a little bit
100%.
now? Like you're just trying to get to the next week?
100%. I'm
Whatever
going
you
home
could
and
do.
riding horses.
Yes.
Always.
Okay. So you're
Always
always
riding
chasing
horses.
$1 to eat next week.
100%.
Okay.
Because I had, my sponsors were, if I had sponsors, it would be Classic Ropes, and they'd send me a box of ropes and some pads. And I felt like that was, nice of them to do that. But I paid my own fuel, my own fees, and I just went from place to place to place and tried to get it done. And then when I was in Arizona, I rode outside horses a little bit or gave some lessons or something. I was,
But are you still trying to stay in the States full time, or you can't stay there full time?
at this point, I kind of reached a point where I thought, I've got to get more in. And I stayed down here for about 2 years. I really stayed down for the summers, and probably illegally. I was an illegal immigrant, like a lot of Canadians.
Yes.
But they never caught me, so it was all right. But I was rodeoing at the time, and I was just happy to be knocking horns with the top guys in the world, and I was observing and learning. And I think those really tough years, those lean years, I learned so much. And I would take it back, and whether it was work ethic or business or, whatever. But I really still didn't feel like part of the crew until you start practicing with them.
Yes.
And then you start hanging around them, and then you start getting confidence in yourself. And you say, man, I can hang with this guy. This guy's got a gold buckle. I roped just as good as him yesterday. And I started believing in myself. And that's what I had to go through. But if you realize it, I was from another country just like you. It took me longer to get through that and get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But you've got to get comfortable in that environment. And I think
But the only way you get comfortable, Dean, is you had to be uncomfortable first.
Oh, yeah.
That's the part that people miss, is that when they get uncomfortable, they want to stop. You got to stay uncomfortable until uncomfortable gets comfortable. Does that make sense? You've got to stay there until it doesn't bother you anymore.
Yeah, and I think you almost get numb to it.
Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
Oh, I think that it depends on your personality. And I think for me, I could keep getting kicked down. I'm like, you can keep kicking me down. I'll be here tomorrow. Here we go. We're going to come back. I'm going to be in the Slack tomorrow morning. I'm going to bring a better version of myself. Even though I suck today, I'll be better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I kept doing that and believing in myself. And I think you've got to have little victories along the way to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you get kicked down too long, I think it can get you a little bit stymied, messed up. And I think that I was very fortunate. There would be little victories. It'd be a go-round win at San Antonio one winter. Okay, great. That's enough for me to believe I can do this
and
again.
keep going.
Yeah. And so I think that I was a slow learner, and it was a little bit of a slow burn for me. But also, I look at the reps, and I look at now that I see, people that grow up down here. The kids in Arizona, when I got down there, I was almost intimidated by them, the 18, 19-year-olds, and I was 23. I'm like, they rope better than I do. But honestly, they had 10 million steers, and I lived up in Canada, and I told you for 6 months a year, we didn't rope.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of honestly humble beginnings that actually gave me that opportunity to be patient while it wasn't going good. And understand, hey, I just need more reps. I need to be down here. I need to work harder at it versus these young guys that were really good when they were 18. 9 times out of 10, they're not even as good now. They just never got. I think it came too easy for them.
Yeah.
And I think they skipped over all the important steps, and they learned as kids, and it just was too easy for them.
I've noticed this very much, and it could be in sports, playing the piano. It doesn't matter what it is. The more naturally gifted somebody is, typically the less they practice, the less passionate they are. It comes too easy for them.
Sure.
I think the more, when you get somebody of natural talent and passion, they're unbeatable.
Sure.
Okay. But I would say 9 times out of 10, the more naturally gifted somebody is, the lazier they are, the less practice they put in, because it came too easy. People like myself, I first to say, I'm not naturally gifted at training horses at all. I had to work really fucking hard at it to get good feel and timing. But typically, there's a book, I think his name is Lanny Basham, and he was an Olympic shooter and clay shooter. And I've been to a lot of his seminars. He kind of has a lot of self-help seminars and positive thinking, stuff like that. And he's got a book, I think it's called something Winning or something. Lanny Basham's his name anyway. He interviewed more Olympic gold medalists than anybody in the world. And he always asked them one question. He always said, do you feel like you were naturally talented at your particular sport? And every one of them in his book said, no, I was not naturally talented at all.
Sure.
And then he would ask him, what made you so good? How did you get to win a gold medal? And they all said their own version of this, but essentially the same thing. I just worked harder than everybody else.
Sure.
I just had more passion than everybody else. Because it didn't come easy for me, I couldn't fucking cut any corners.
Yeah.
I couldn't get lazy. I couldn't miss practice.
Yeah.
And so that just goes to show you don't necessarily need talent. You need passion. More than anything, you need a fucking work ethic. You need a backbone.
Yeah.
You need to be able to get a black eye and say, shit, I'm going to get after it again.
Yeah.
You-
I look at guys like that for sure. And now I help young guys. And I think one of the worst things to tell somebody is how talented they are when they're young. I think it's almost the wrong thing to say. They go, well, I'm talented. I guess I don't have to work as hard as the next guy. And I think I'd rather put it in a different term, and I'd say, go outwork them.
Yeah.
Now you got a chance. I see something in you. I see the passion, and you go outwork.
You've got a skill set, but unless you put it to work, it's useless.
Doesn't matter.
That's exactly right. I fired a lot of kids with a lot of talent over the years, Dean, that didn't have the work ethic, didn't have the ethics, didn't have the passion. I've let them go down the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's talk a little bit now. So you're about 28. You've met your wife. You're kind of at that point where you're back to thinking, am I going to be a clinician? And, you're starving to death. Where do you go from here? Where's the next chapter kind of start here?
I think I had a restart a little bit, and I quit rodeoing a little bit. And when I met her, I made a big move. I moved from Arizona to Oregon, and I helped her dad on the ranch. And I think I needed some time to kind of grow up and center myself and decide what are my, what are my ambitions? What is this going to be like? And I think he was great for me. He was a great guy, very supportive. And then his wife at the time, which was when she was alive, Margie Denton, and she was an amazing person. And she was my wife's mom. And I got to be around her, and she was just a really, really special person in my life and my whole family's life. And unfortunately, we lost her a few years later to colon cancer, but she was the matriarch of our family and her family business. And she was very, very positive, very supportive. And at this time, she actually owned a barrel racing stud. So she had interest in the in the roping or in the rodeo world. They were big supporters of high school rodeo in Oregon and Washington. And she did it at a personal level, but she got to be friends with Marlene McRae, and Marlene ran this stallion at the national finals. So we all gathered up and went to watch her at the finals, and then she was successful, won a couple go rounds, and he's a great young horse. And then we said, okay, we're going to start breeding him. And she said, I'd like to buy a couple mares for her. And I said, okay, well, what do you see? And she said, well, no, you tell me. What do you think I should get? What should we get? Let's go in partners. And I said, okay, I'll help you. And so by and large, it was just kind of on a whim. And we found these horses, and I found these 3 mares in Rhode Island. And they were top sale whiz king mares, and we were going to breed them to this barrel horse. And we were literally, I was just making it up as I was going along, to be honest. Yeah. And I was like, I like these horses. I like the bloodline. I love the top sale whiz. They're going to stop. If these horses can't run barrels, I'll be able to rope on them.
Okay, so that was your plan B. If I didn't,
that was my plan B. Those 2 original mares that I bought, I still have them. We still have them. They're 29 and 30, I believe. Yeah. One of them is just produced the champion Angus last year, the ARHFA, her last baby. The other one has produced DT Sugar Chex Whiz, which is the #1 mare in the rope horse industry. Those 2 original sisters.
Oh, truly?
Yeah, so they're still producers. I got shithouse lucky, and we started beating them around.
I appreciate the honesty. You know what? I'd rather be lucky than stupid, so fuck it. We'll take the luck, Dean.
I'm telling you, it was so lucky. And we just started breeding them, and we bred them That's 1 funny. Year to the stallion. And then they were hand breeding him, and he broke his leg. So we were sitting there flat-footed, and she said, oh, now what do we do? And I said, well, I catch rode a few Shining Sparks at a horse show in California. I really like those horses, so maybe we should. I'm flipping through the AQH, and I get to Shining Spark. Oh, I can't afford that. Okay, we're going to do a couple of the Sons. And we did. And lo and behold, that's how it got started. And we started producing some nice rope horses, and then
in Oregon. You're living in Oregon.
Yeah, we're living in Oregon on the ranch, and we're breeding 3
When you say a ranch,
mares.
do they have cattle on this ranch?
Yeah.
And you're kind of managing the ranch? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, really. It was, there wasn't much cattle there at the time, but honestly, we started our family. We got married,
you start having kids?
Absolutely. And I'm just rodeoing a little tiny bit, and I'm riding horses, and really kind of.
So you're what, early
horses.
30s now?
Yeah, not even, probably 30, right around 30.
Was having children important to you? Is it something you wanted to do?
Yeah, growing up, and I had an opportunity to travel around the United States for a few years, and
how a decade you were.
Yeah, heck yeah, I was going everywhere, and I think for me, I felt like that was going to be really important to us, and I think, when we started having kids, we were both all in. It was just, changing diapers, everything. I was like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'll do everything. And I think if there's any gift that I have, looking back on that, it's tough. Those first few years, we had 2 kids in diapers and my mother-in-law was passing away. And I felt like I was, babysitting
Yeah.
during the day. And I was, my wife was really struggling and going through all the medical stuff with her mom. But I got close to those kids and I was always close to the kids. And I think that was something that just stayed with us for years. And we're still very, very close. We do lots of things together with our kids. And I think, that was a gift.
Okay, fair
me.
enough. That was a chapter change
It was.
that you may have not seen coming. You know what I mean? But you walked through the door and went
Yep.
through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think so. And then my wife was very supportive. And,
So she liked the horses too.
she did. And my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, they were all very supportive. And so I got super lucky again. Like I didn't deserve that, I don't believe, but I think they saw the passion in me and they helped me support that. So I started raising horses, but yet I still had this burner on the back. I wanted to go to the national finals. And so I still kind of dabbled a little bit. I went to some, go to a few rodeos here or there, and I got to rope with some great guys. I roped with Charlie Crawford. I roped with some different guys because I roped well enough, but I wasn't
Did
committed
they have
enough.
an arena in Oregon that you built an
Yeah,
arena?
we
up
built a
there
little
that-
arena,
that you
yes.
could go train on,
Oh,
have
yeah.
some horses there.
It was great. We had a ranch, and it was a beautiful ranch just outside of Prineville, right up in the hills, and it was an old thoroughbred farm. And so we built an arena down below. But for a couple of years, all I did is build a round corral, and I roped the lead steer on my colts for
Yep.
a couple of years until I built the arena. And literally, we would ride them up. The cows were up there. We would ride them in the hills and bring them down, and then rope the steers. And so my horses got a lot of outside riding as well. And I think I've always believed that was such a big piece of building my horses. And I was able to compete, train horses, and kind of honestly get better. I still needed more time to get better. Every time I looked back on failures, I said, man, I got to get better. Instead of blaming everybody else,
Yeah.
I felt like, shit, I ain't roping good enough. My horses aren't good enough. I'm not good enough. I need to get better. I need to get better. And then you start, I think I was just so humbled by the sport. It was so difficult. And I wasn't sure if I would ever get over that hump. But yet I'd spent enough time around the top guys in the world. I said, I can do this. I can hang with these guys.
Right.
And so 2006 came along. My mother-in-law passed away. It was a tough couple years. And I was going to go take a shot. And it was fresh off my mother-in-law passing. And, my wife to step up and say, yeah, go take a shot. I'm like, we had 2 kids. They were 3 and 2 or
Yeah.
something like that. And for her to do that and be supportive and jump in the truck and trailer, I look back on that and go, man, you're crazy. I would have told me to take a hike.
Yeah.
But we did. We headed out. We went to the winter rodeos. Rich got me a partner. I roped with Jay Ellerman, had a good winter, placed at San Antonio, placed at,
Where'd you
San
get the
Angelo.
horses from to ride?
I
Did you
had
buy
a
'em or
couple
train 'em?
horses. One of them I trained. One of them I got from Rich that didn't fit Rich very well. And I bought him from him and tried to kind of make him better. And all I did is ride him in a snaffle and ride the hell out of him all day long. And he softened a little bit. He ended up down the road being a runner-up horse of the year in the PRCA, but he was a handful.
Yeah.
And those were my 2 horses. And I bounced around a little bit, went to the circuit finals, just wasn't fully committed. But I got to rope with Jake Barnes. So in 2006, went to the winter, didn't go great, but I got to rope. Jake had just cut his thumb off, and he lived down the road in Scottsdale. And so I got to practicing with him. And we jumped in together, and we went to California rodeos, and we won a little money right off the bat. And so we just kind of kept going. That was kind of one of those years that we were like, well, we'll see how it goes. And we won a little bit, and then we won a little bit more, and then we won a little bit more, and we just hovered around the top 15. And that was really a year I got to hang out with Corey Kuntz. I partnered, we buddied with Corey and David Key, and I really, really started believing in myself. I was like, I can do this.
Okay. What's changing? Are you practicing more? You just got around different ropers? What are the ingredients that's giving your confidence a big high there?
Number one is quality of the heel horse. I got a better heel horse, and I started gaining confidence that I could stick this thing out and I could stick out a full year. And that's hard to do. It's easy to kind of go through the year and give it a shot, but it was like we were committed, and I learned how to be a better partner. Jake was fantastic. He was very patient with me. I made mistakes. He let me organize everything. We went around my schedule a little bit, but we practiced every single day. I just felt like we didn't quite click as a rodeo team. We were a great jackpot team, but we didn't quite click. And honestly, by the end of the year, we missed the tour finale. We got bumped out at the last deal. I missed the high teamer, roped a leg in the high teamer at Pendleton at the end of the year to miss kind of getting a chance to go to the finals. And I thought it was over. I was like, I'm done.
You would have been what, 35 now?
No, I was probably, pretty close, 34. So I just thought, probably done. That's probably it. I took my shot at it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd won a U.S. title. I'd done some different things. I won some USTRC stuff. I definitely was known as a catcher.
Yeah.
I felt like, a good jackpotter, good horseman, good catcher. But, when it comes to the top 15, that guy's probably not there. So I kind of just packed it in and I said, okay, we're probably going to be done. And then Speedy called me or texted me and he said, you can't quit. I said, what do you mean? He said, you got the best healer. I've watched you all year. You got the best heel horse. You need to keep going. You and I need to rope and Jake and Clay can rope. And so we swapped.
Okay.
And we made it work. And we took off. And then I really started, it changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
That opportunity to rope with Speedy, it changed my life. And then 2007, we really led the standings the whole year.
What part of roping with Speedy was such a big game changer for you? Did he teach you more? Did you two practice more? Did you two just fit better? What was some of the ingredients? I know it changed you, but I'm looking for specifics.
I think specifically it was how we prepared. I think I learned how to prepare better with Speedy. And he had a recipe that was very, very successful with Rich Skelton. They won 7 world titles and he outworked everybody. Mm-hmm. This guy worked smarter. He worked harder and smarter. And when I got involved with him, our typical practice day would be, okay, we're going to run 40 steers. We're going to just, tail the pin. We're going to go out here. We're going to rope them. And okay, well, we can catch 35 out of 40, feel good about ourselves. And then it's going to go to the rodeo and, well, we'll see how we do. Speedy's like, no. We're going to practice different. We're going to practice harder than we have to compete. We're going to go faster and we're going to sustain that. And it's going to be freaking hard. That's how we're going to do it. But I had seen him do it with Rich and I had heard about it, but I hadn't lived it. And so I
you mean faster steers?
Faster steers, fresh cows, harder. I went down there thinking I was going to show him how great I was, and I was quickly humbled. The first week, I wasn't sure I was going to get through it.
Truly.
My groins were sore. My hands were sore. The steers were dead fresh. We didn't break them in. And as soon as they got easy to catch, they're out.
Oh, so he wanted to train
the toughest
practice
cows
at that high level speed.
Right. And so we spent a week, and it was right before the Fort Worth rodeo. We'd roped at a couple rodeos, Odessa and Denver, didn't win anything. He said, you're going to come out a week ahead, right? Oh, yeah, yes, sir, I'll be there. And we got there, and it was the toughest 5 days up in my career on my mental kind of set, right? I went from like roping in an environment where I was going to be comfortable and be successful in practice span, where I'm going to fail. I'm failing way more than I'm being successful. But then when we went to compete in Fort Worth, we won. We won the rodeo.
Did the steers seem slow to you?
It was like slow motion.
Yeah.
It was like slow motion. So, there was a lot of luck involved. We drew good steers. He headed them well. I heeled them well. But boom, first week we get a championship at Fort Worth. And then the way we were set up, we rolled right into San Antonio and we won again. We won San Antonio the next week, basically. So, or next 2 weeks is how it worked. But these practice sessions were crazy, fast, and difficult. And I hadn't done that.
How did that affect the horses? When you run those horses so much at that red line, RPMs, did it make them get worse? Did it make the horses get better? Was that a concern for you? Like, holy fuck,
Huge.
I'm gonna blow my horses
I was
up.
a mess because I was a trainer. The minute that was going on, I'm going, whoa. The blocks are falling out of all my horses. Now I got no softness. I can't control it. This horse that was so great, I don't have the feel. He's cutting in, he's shouldering, he's hurrying. I feel like, and I had to settle myself and get through it. And he said to me that week, he said, you know what? You're probably the greatest horseman I've roped with. And I've roped with some great ropers. And that was a big compliment. And I puffed my chest out. He said, but, oh, fuck, here it comes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said, but you've got to let that go and you've got to go rope. And so for that year, I did that for the most part. I get prepared. I was prepared, but when I went to the rodeo, it was I'm roping that steer.
So let me ask you, did you notice as a horseman, when you let go of some of that, well, I'll call it horseman's anxiety. We all get anxiety about them learning bad habits, or their ear, their left ear was 2 inches to the left, it
Yep.
should have been to the right. And the I call them idiosyncrasies we get as horse trainers, okay?
Yeah.
Did you happen to notice when you made a conscious effort to basically said, fuck it, I'm a roper, not a horse trainer.
Yeah.
Did you notice that when you kept practicing at that speed, did you notice the horses, sure, they might have had a few wheels starting to fall off, but there became a point where they got better again. Like they got used to that speed
Sure.
to where now speed didn't bother them anymore. Did you talk
Yeah.
to me about, did the horses just keep getting progressively worse?
I
as
think
the
some
year went
did
on?
and some didn't. But I was a little sneaky. I would go put stuff back together in the morning.
Okay.
I remember
When
him
he's
saying,
not around.
I remember him saying, "What are you doing down there on the dummy all the time before we rope?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to put you back together."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was in my brain that way. So I was wired a little different.
So you were trying to put a few Band-Aids on throughout
100%.
the
I'm
year.
trying to put some blocks back in and get
So
some
let me ask
softness.
you, if Speedy's not doing that,
Hmm.
how are his horses staying the fuck together? If he's not putting Band-Aids on,
Great question.
how does he keep
Great
his
question.
shit together?
Well, at this point, I never heeled behind any of his good horses. He had practice horses.
Okay.
And he was fixing his horses, and I never roped behind his good 2 or 3 horses. He was very good at keeping those horses good, scoring, breakaway in. And he has a wife that's an unbelievable horseman. And she's keeping these horses together. She's breakaway on. She's riding them out there in the field. She's softening them.
Okay.
That son of a gun, yeah, and he's letting me blow up my shit
Okay, let's
to get my
this straight.
confidence.
So his good ones that he's competing on, he's
damn
not
right.
running them wide
No
open
way.
every day.
No, but he's doing it in a little different way.
Okay.
And he's actually making sure they're soft because he knew if his horses scored and they were soft, I'm going to be successful as a healer.
Okay.
But if they're leaning and they're pushing, then I'm going to be a mess back there.
So you don't have a set of practice horses, is what you're telling me. You got one set
I
of
did
horses.
eventually.
Okay, but in that first year you didn't. Your practice.
No, I
horse-
found out that when I drove down there with my 4 horses, 3 of them were really just practice horses. I only had one good one.
Fair
I
enough.
thought I had 4 great ones. I had 3 dinks. But I used them to practice and they got better. I think they got better to some degree because I kept doing both things.
Was it easier for you to let some of that horsemanship stuff go as far as the horses cheating here and there? When it's quote unquote just a practice horse, did that take a little bit of the pressure off? Like, fuck it, I'm never going to compete on this. It's a practice horse.
100%.
So sure, I don't give a shit if he gets away with a few habits here or there.
100%.
Well, that would help relax that, wouldn't it?
It does. And I think that a lot of young ropers live that all the time. Like the top ropers all have practice horses. They have practice horses that have common names that people even know their names.
Yeah.
You know, they use them on social media and they just duck them and go fast. And they get used to that speed on those horses.
Yeah.
They don't worry about softening them or doing. They just run them and run them and run them and run them. There's some famous old practice horses, and in some cases, some of these practice horses ended up going to the NFR and being very good. You know, some guys' practice horses, they actually get very patterned and they settle down, and they end up being pretty good in certain situations.
So how
They're
do
not
you-
soft by any means.
Yeah.
but
How do
they're
you make
patterned.
sure the good horses get used to that speed? If you're trying to keep, did Speedy tell you, hey, we gotta let our good horses out of the box once or
He
twice
did
a
such
week?
a great job of managing it for me. He knew my heel horse. If I ran him down, if we said, hey, we're going to run these ones down and go jackpot them like we're at the BFI, my good heel horse didn't see that.
Yeah.
We kept everything tightened down on my, he actually turned everything very fast on my heel horse because he was kind of strong, and it helped him stay back and not push too much. So he was going 50, 60 feet out and stopping and turning. We weren't going 250 feet out and getting, because this horse would get strong in the bridle. And that kept him pretty good. But I also learned a recipe how to stop him on the dummy, and I learned some things how to keep my horse good. And then that kind of kept.
Was there
kept through
anything
for
from
the
a
year.
horsemanship perspective that you picked up from Speedy that you could talk about?
Oh gosh, his timing, you know, he was so great for about 15 years that now everybody's just copied him. Like every header out there, he's still mentoring all the top headers. They're all coming to him for lessons. But how he practiced and prepared and broke it down. Every run we made that whole year was on video. Practice, every jackpot, every time we competed, because he said, there's always a reason you miss or catch. Let's look at it. and we would break it down. And I was very analytical too, so it was a good fit for me. I wasn't the type of the guy who goes, don't worry about the videos. It's all right. We'll figure it out. No, man, I wanted to know. So I learned so much in that year. That was a big learning year for me to break down runs and break down reasons that it's falling apart. This guy had been dominating, and he had been doing it that way. He's very more prepared than everybody else. And
Where was he getting his good horses from? Was he building them, buying them?
I think a combo. I think he'd done, he's a very similar background as I was. His dad was a horse trader and a roper in Florida, and I think he grew up riding everything and
Trying to make it
yeah,
work.
absolutely. His wife was in the polo business, I think, and they rode ponies, and all her sisters roped, and that's Haley Williams' mom, and she's an unbelievable horseman too. So there was a lot of horsemanship in the background.
So after that first year, did you guys make the NFR that year?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah,
Were you the first Canadian to
Yes.
make the NFR as a team roper,
Yes.
correct? So
Yeah,
that
I
was
was
your
the
goal, correct?
Yeah, and I was a season leader, so I had the most money won going to the NFR. So it was a big year for
That's
me.
awesome.
It was
How
awesome.
old were you then? 36 now?
Yes.
36. So this is going back to a dream you had as a teenager.
Yes.
15, 16-year-old teenager, that'd be cool to be a Canadian that makes the NFR. You've made it. Now, it was a 16-year journey.
Sure.
Maybe 20-year journey, really.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, now you want to ask me the tough question. Here it comes. Go ahead, throw it at me. How was it?
Well, how was it? Yes.
Terrible.
Well, actually, I tell you
Terrible.
what.
It was a nightmare.
We need to take a break, freshen
Sure.
up cocktail. When we come back, let's talk about your first trip to the NFR.
Sure.
Because I asked Fred Whitfield the same question, and it was a great story. He said, Clinton, my first NFR was an absolute disaster. He said it was lights, cameras, action, and he said I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And it was a great story. Very humble for him to share that story. So when we get back after this break, we're going to pick it up. You and Speedy go to the NFR, and what happens from there. Great stuff. Breaking Bad is by the hottest stallion in the industry out of a great mare, Sweet Abra. He is athletic, extremely cowy, and was easy to train. He's a 3-time major events open champion with lifetime earnings of $230,000 and counting. He is subscribed to all the major NCHA and NRCHA programs and is in the Legacy Bonus Program with an estimated payout of $1 million at this year's NCHA Futurity. His 2026 breeding fee is $4,500 plus shoot fee. Breaking Bad is owned by Fultz Ranch, the previous owners of Metallic Cat and Stevie Ray Vaughan, the same people that made those two stallions household legendary names in the cutting and cow horse industries. Mention the Uncut and Real Raw podcast for free apparel with a paid contract.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Miola. My wife Michelle and I own and run the fabulous Silver Spurs Equine Breeding Centers located in Purcell, Oklahoma and Scottsdale, Arizona. We specialize in making your equine dreams come true by breeding the finest American quarter horses in the world. Finding that special horse, the one that speaks to your soul, is what Silver Spurs is all about. When you come to our ranch in Purcell, Oklahoma, you will meet that fabulous weanling that once trained, utilizing Clinton Anderson's tried and proven methods, will become an extension of your body, knowing intuitively what you want to do and give you endless hours of adventure and love. Our stallions are the elite. They represent the finest bloodlines in their sport and have won every championship title during their competitive careers. Our breeding program is partially skill, partially science, partially art, definitely a gift from God, but mostly love. So if you share our passion and possess the drive and desire to compete in the show pen or tour the great American landscape with a loyal companion, creating adventures you will treasure for a lifetime, Silver Spurs has the horse you've been dreaming of.
This episode is brought to you in part by Real Cow, bringing the most realistic mechanical cow experience to your training program. You and Speedy make the NFR. You've made your goal. You've accomplished your goal as a kid to be the first Canadian to make it this far. I suspect going into it, you're feeling confident, correct? Tell me where your mind is. You're going.
Sure.
You're driving to this event. You got to be fucking pumped, correct?
Sure.
You got to be jacked up. Like, holy shit! I'm 36 and I made this lifelong goal. Tell me where your mind is going into the event.
I think
If you can remember back to how it felt.
It's easy to remember because it led to a lot of other memories. But I literally, at the end of the year, there was a tour finale in Dallas, and we won it. And I remember them interviewing us. We were 3-7 our last year, and they take you down in front of the chutes and they interview us on CBS. And I think she asked me, oh, you guys have been on this big roll and you've won, the year-end leader. You guys are obviously the favorites going in there. And it kind of hit me. And I'm like, I'm still on cloud 9 on this whole year, and this kind of a dream year. And I think she asked me something like, how do you feel, or how do you think it's going to be at the NFR? And I think realistically it hit me, and I said, I don't know. I've never been there before. And now I've built this thing up in my head that it's, going to be this big thing, but also now you're the favorites. So it wasn't just, I didn't just sneak in. Now I'm the favorite. We're the pick because I'm roping with Speedy, and Speedy's going to win. It's Thomas and Mack. He always wins. And we went there, and I'd love to tell you we had a great preparation. I felt like we prepared better earlier in the year and during the year than we really did the week or two before the NFR.
Why was that? What happened?
I just think we just didn't have a great prep, or maybe it was just me. Maybe it was the pressure of it. Maybe it was feeling like now I'm starting to feel the blocks falling out of my horse. I'm getting a little trainerish. Maybe it's the nerves, maybe it's everything, but I'm feeling like, man, my horse isn't quite as good as he was in June. What's going on? What am I not feeling right there? And then we came out early, we go to Arizona, we come to my house, and we're actually at the ranch where I'm at now, and we were going to practice for a few days, and boom, it rains. It's Thanksgiving and it rains. We don't get to rope for 3 or 4 or 5 days before the NFR. So he goes up there, and I feel like, damn, we missed our 4 or 5 days here of practice too. I just didn't feel as confident going into the finals as I did throughout the year.
Do you ever remember having a conversation with Speedy? Did he feel confident? What was it? Do you ever remember asking?
I don't think I had to ask him, because his confidence, he just had won so much at that point.
At that point, how many times had he made the finals? If you had to
I'm
guess?
going to say 12.
Okay,
10,
so he's
12.
a veteran.
100%.
He's a seasoned veteran.
And he's won 8 of those finals.
Okay.
He's dominated.
Dominated.
So we go into it, and honestly, I think one of the mistakes that I made, and I think it happens with, being the season leader and a little bit of a story in the Canadian. I'm doing some media stuff, and I'm doing more interviews, and they, they probably, the local TV show, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Yeah. And it just felt like a blur. The first 3 or 4 perfs felt like a blur. And so we back in there the first night, and Speedy misses.
That's got to be rare, isn't it?
It's rare. So that's okay. We got 9 nights. Okay, we go around there, and the second night, we draw another steer. We're not really happy with the draw. He's pretty fresh. The first 3 runs through.
What do you mean not happy with the draw?
We know what steers we have. So we've roped these steers through. They're very fresh this particular year. And in the second round...
So just slow down. Again, I don't come from a roping background, but you can practice with these steers before?
No, we just ran them through. The cows have ran through, so we have an idea of what they are. Remember, Speedy's very good at preparing. Okay. So he has a video library of these cattle.
So all contestants can watch each steer run through the chutes?
Not really. They probably do now, but at this point, he had his wife in the corner videoing as we ran him through the Thomas and Mack one time. Okay. And he said, I don't like this steer. And I watched the video. I said, I don't like him either. And he turned a pretty good steer, and I roped a leg. So again, we didn't do any good. Then we come back to the third round. He misses again, I believe. Then the fourth round, I believe he broke the barrier. So now we're sitting there, and we haven't won a dime. 4 rounds, and it has not gone good.
So when this happens, do you two sit down as partners and look at each other and say, okay, what do we need to do to change this? Are you having little meetings, or is it just, talk to me about the partnership. How does that work with team ropers? When you both, when it's not going well, do you both sit down and say, okay, what do I need to do to support you? What do you know? Sure. Tell me how that works. I
think throughout the year, he was the best teammate ever. I tell everybody that. He made me a better teammate, but he was just all about getting the best out of me. He was like a playing coach. Yeah. I would say, right? And he was so good. But at this point, it just didn't go good. And he says to me, I'm going to change horses. My horse, I came here last year with Clay O'Brien Cooper. My horse felt too free and weak, and now I've strengthened him up so much, he feels too strong. I'm not getting a start, and he's kind of ducking on me. And the steers were very fresh. So that's a bad recipe.
So the steers are fresh means they're running hard.
They're not starting, they're hauling ass and not handling.
Okay. Which
is common at the NFR. And that particular year, it was really a tough group of steers. It felt like there's 3 pens of steers, I believe, and it felt like about the same 4 steers were getting one on every night. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't dip into those 4 steers, you were probably going to struggle. Okay. And so that's just the draw. The draw is a factor nobody really talks about. We watch it on TV and just assume that you can win
I
on
had
everything.
no idea of it that meant.
But honestly, they can be very uneven. And there's steers in there that are easy to be 4 on, and there's steers you can't be 9 on. It's just the way it is. And we weren't drawing, what we felt were the right end of them, but honestly, that's where my focus
Are they just
fell.
drawing out of a hat every night? How do
Yes.
you get the draws? Seriously?
Yes. They just draw them out. So now once they run them one time, now you've got a little book on them. So you can go in there and like in the 4th round, you'll bring back the steers from the 1st round and you go, hey, we got old number 13, and you go in there and you go, so-and-so had them, how'd they do? Oh, the header missed. Okay, well, he's still kind of fresh. We didn't really get a feel for how he handled. But you get an idea of that, right?
That's why I want to ask you a question. Again, I don't mean to be ignorant, but I don't understand your world. But are those steers pretty predictable? If they act a certain way, will they kind of do the same thing the next time? I know
After
it sounds
they've
stupid.
been
We're
broke
not
in
cow
and
training
patterned.
here, but
Yeah.
are they predictable?
After they've been roped a certain amount, when they're very fresh, they can change.
Okay.
But really what makes them really hard in the Thomas and Mack is a fresh cow doesn't want to start.
What do you mean by start? The gate's open and he
Exactly.
stalls?
They'll pause. They won't just leave off like a
because of the
racehorse.
lights, camera, action? What is
They
it?
just haven't been roped that much.
Yeah.
And as they get roped better, it's really important to have them broke in so they start good and they handle good. This particular year, they didn't start very good and they didn't handle very good. And it's just how it was. It was that way for everybody.
Yeah, everybody's under
It
the
was
same
everybody. But honestly, the start that we had, having 4 bad go rounds or just a bad start, it just starts, and then you start pressing and you meet before the rodeo and we talk about the steer we have, and we go back and look at the video library, and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and he goes, well, I guess we got nothing to lose now. Let's just go for the day monies every night. And honestly, he did a very good job in the second half of the rodeo, and I had lost my focus, and I wasn't roping patient the way I roped all year long.
Why?
I missed more
Why do
steers
you
at the NFR. I think nerves.
Okay,
I think
nerves.
nerves. I think having the pressure and then it not going well. And everybody and your aunt and your uncle are telling you how to rope good by the 3rd round or 4th round. That's just the way it is. They don't watch you all year. I believe that
So
year-
everybody's giving you feedback.
It is. And it's just how it is. They all want you to do good.
Yeah.
But I felt the weight of Canada on my shoulders a little
Fair
bit.
enough. Yeah.
And I was also, roping with Speedy, and it was the way it was. Yeah. But I didn't do very well. I actually roped terrible. My focus fell as the week went. My focus fell a little bit.
Your confidence is going down.
Oh, it was terrible.
Are you changing horses? Sticking to the same horse?
I stuck with. It was not my horse.
Okay, right. I'm
It
just
was
looking
not.
for a way out here.
You know what? I should have. I could have, but no, my horse was great. I was just throwing a half a jump too soon. I was a little out of whack. I was hurrying my shots. Now I look back, I've watched the NFR for 19 straight years, and I see guys go through the same stuff.
So if you, with your years of experience now, if you could go back and the young Dean sitting there that's having a bad time at the NFR, what would you tell yourself now? With all your years of experience now and maturity, what would you actually tell yourself now? If you were sitting there in round 4, you two are not doing great, what would you tell yourself now?
I think relax. I think relax a little bit. I think find a way to relax. Find a way to breathe. It was real unfortunate. There was a lot of things that you do during those 10 days. I did some music stuff. I played music, and then got to about the 5th night and I got sick. I got laryngitis. I was sick all week. I felt crappy. That all played into my psyche. It didn't bother me roping during the year. But boy, it was, man, could this get any worse? I'm sick. I got a sore throat. I can't think straight. I'm not roping very good. The world, it's just how it is. But I think to be able to say, hey, breathe and relax a little bit, I think that would have helped.
I've noticed myself showing some of the cow horses that I've shown that were kind of average horses that I didn't expect much out of. I actually felt like I did better on those horses than the ones that I'm like, okay, I got a really
need
nice
to do
horse.
well.
I want to
Yeah.
kick somebody's ass. I'm ready. And I've fucked it up every time, or it just hasn't gone well.
Sure.
And so I've noticed for myself, when I noticed I said, okay, Clinton, how are you feeling when you show the average ones? And the attitude is, oh, fuck it, I just want to get through the run. Like I couldn't give a shit. I actually showed the horses better. The horses rode better. Even if it was a 214 kind of a horse, it still gave me a 214.
Yeah.
Where the one that's capable of marking a 222, that gives me a 211. That's a bummer.
That's a pressure.
You know what I mean? So I've tried lately to go in there and show with an attitude of, I don't give a fuck. And again, I think everybody's got to have their own way of doing that. But go into it with an attitude of, I don't give a rat's ass.
I think
and the less I
that's
try,
interesting.
I think I do better.
It's interesting because I think what you're saying, I'm going through it this week with Nick Dowers. Nick Dowers is showing a horse for me at the Derby. He's creating pressure on himself to show the horse for me. I'm not. I'm just like, how's he doing? You know? And he went out and he did a 223 in the reining, and he went out and had a shit show in the cutting. And he said, man, I want it so bad for you. And I'm like, don't worry about it. It'll happen.
Yeah.
Right? As an owner, I'm like, I've been through all this. You're the greatest trainer, maybe one of the greatest trainers I've ever been around.
Yeah.
But you got to relax. Don't worry about it. You're trying too hard.
That and you actually don't just say that. You actually walk that walk, because I've probably trained horses for you now, not a handful of horses for you now every year for the last 4 or 5 years. And when people ask me what's it like to train horses for Dean, I say it's the fucking best, and they say why. And I said, number one, always pays his bill. You never have to worry about being late. Number two, you are the first horse trainer a customer, that I've ever trained horses for that was a real horseman. I said, it's nice to train horses for an actual horseman because, one, he appreciates how many goddamn fucking hours went into training this horse. So he's not thinking this is just a monthly check that you got to write. He understands you're out there every day doing it 6 days a week. And number two, I said, I love training horses for Dean because I can send him a video of his horses, and the horse may not have had a great day that day, which they're all not going to have a good day every day, but I don't have to worry about it because I can send it to Dean and say, hey, Dean, he was a bit of a shithead that day. He's kind of stutty. He wasn't on his game. This is kind of what he's doing. And I can get feedback from you. Hey, this looks good. Make an adjustment here. And I take it seriously because you are a horseman. Yeah. Now, if I sent you 5 or 6 videos in a row and some bitch ain't having a good ride, now we're in trouble. But it's nice to know, because you've been there and done that, you understand it doesn't all come together every time. Right. Not every video is going to be perfect. And again, I send you videos of the entire ride. Yeah. I don't just send you a 6-second clip. Anybody can make a 6-second clip look good. It could be rearing on its back feet 3 seconds ago. Yeah. You cut that part out and you get the slide and stop. I send you a whole fucking 45 minutes of start to finish what happened, good or bad, to try to show you the whole thing. And I remember a horse trainer said to me, aren't you worried about this? I said, hell no, not with Dean, because he's an actual fucking horseman. He understands there's going to be good and bad parts of every ride. There's going to be good parts of every week. There's going to be some weeks, you feel like you go backwards. There's going to be other weeks where you just go straight up in the air, and there's going to be other weeks where the damn thing's flat. I said that's what I love training about horses for him, is because he's an actual horseman. So I can appreciate that.
I appreciate you saying that, but I also think it's a true partnership, and I think ultimately, like if it's just a rewards-based partnership, or it's just about winning, or you're in it for the wrong reasons. And for me, we don't know. You've got a great 3-year-old this year. We're hoping for the best. Yeah. You're going to do your best. The horse is going to do his best. We're going to see how it goes, but there's so many other outside things that can happen. The draw is such a big influential piece of it. Maybe he doesn't have a great snaffle bit, but maybe he shows enough,
talent.
Talent. We go, all right, maybe he's going to be a great 4-year-old, maybe a great 5-year-old. And I think that's important, because I think if I put pressure on you to perform, or you see it in professional sports all the time. Why is there so many failures in professional sports? Pressure. It's pressure. You don't need any pressure.
No. I got rid of a very wealthy customer a few years ago because he was a jackass. Because if I didn't have a good run, or was a bad cow, or the horse, dropped out a lead or something, he'd be sending me nasty fucking texts. I don't need that pressure. One thing I want all owners to get, is that, and I can't say 100% of trainers, but I could sure say 98% of them. I'll look into the camera when I say this. Don't ever think your trainer is wanting to do bad. Trainers put so much fucking pressure on themselves to do well because, one, they want to do well for their career, and two, they know you're paying all the bills. They know you want success. So I think the last thing because this particular customer, he'd send me, he'd think he'd be motivated by sending me a text before I show, hey, don't fuck up today. You need to do well. That ain't the text you need to send your trainer. Yeah. The text you need to say, hey, go out there and have some fun today. You got this. Whatever happens. I've got another customer that always sends me texts like, go out there and just have fun today. Yeah. And I show for those people so relaxed and so so good because it doesn't matter what the score is. When I come out, they're going to be happy. I'll train their horses for free forever because they're the kind of customers you just dream about having.
I try to carry that forward. You get passionate about it, and you want to see results. But ultimately, like a great story or a great side of it, last fall we had a young horse that I'd been spending a lot of time on, and he was a 4-year-old Hickory Holly Time colt, Hickory Stinger, and we hadn't showed him at all. And he was a little behind. He had a colic surgery, so he missed a lot of his 4-year-old year. But he was training and doing very, very well. And Jeremy came over. Jeremy Bueller rides my horses and does a great job. And we got into October, and I said, here, jump on him and, see how he goes. And he said, man, he feels great to me. And I said, yeah, but we could show him. And I said, okay, all right, we're going to show him, but just ease through it. Let's just make it a good experience for the horse. And he took him to Amarillo, took him to the ARHFA, and he made the short round on him. He's in the top 7 or 8 in the 4-year-olds. First time he'd been off the ranch, really. And but really, it was our mindset when we stepped into it. We said, hey, let's just go have a good experience about it. The horse got through. He made the short round. He was a little bit nervous in the box. So we came home. We had a couple weeks to regroup, and then we went to the Gold Buckle. And I said, well, let's just go have another good experience. And lo and behold, I think his approach and my approach, we took this horse with some talent and we kind of took some pressure off everybody, and the horse won the show.
That's awesome.
And it was kind of cool because it was that moment. It was like, we got to trust our process, trust that it works, and let it happen instead of forcing it to happen. And I think that you learn those things as you go on. Sometimes as an owner, it's easy to get too excited and to get too into it and get too analytical and question people. And, if you got the right guy and you feel like it's the right guy, give him the opportunity to go.
Yeah.
I think that's what you can do.
I promise every owner, no trainer's going out there wanting to look bad.
Sure.
No trainer's going out there wanting to suck. They're all putting in their fucking effort to do the best job they can. So let's back up a little bit here. So the NFR, you make your dream, but the NFR itself didn't go well. What happens by round 10, you say, what happens after the NFR? What happens then?
I knew that was it for me. I felt like, I had to make a commitment to Speedy halfway through the year, which was difficult. He said, I want you to commit to me. I know you're saying it's a 1-year deal, but by the 4th of July, let me know what you're doing for next year. And then 4th of July rolls around. He says, you realize you're winning the world. How can you not plan on going next year? You got to go more than once. I said, no, I made this commitment to my family, my kids. My daughter's going to go to preschool. I'm going to be there. We're going to, we got family business I need to step into. We're going to build a new place. And I cold quit. I cold turkey quit rodeoing, and that's what I did. And I didn't look back. And then I pivoted quickly.
A decision you were very comfortable
absolutely.
making.
And I pivoted right into the horse breeding. And that's the horse breeding and training, which we had already started with my mother-in-law. And so I had some nice colts at the house. I was playing around with them, and lo and behold, I end up with this colt at that point. I think it was 2 or 3. And I was feeling him, and I'm like, man, this sucker feels really, really good. Couple years down the road, that horse ended up being Horse of the Year 2 times in a row at the PRCA level. So Brady Minor went on and won Horse of the Year in the Heelan. So I got lucky and trained a great horse right out the bat. But I was really able to spend some time on it. And honestly, there was a little bit of rodeo remorse time because I was like still kind of pulling. There's a part of you that says, man, I can still be out there, and you're watching the NFR, and felt like there was some unfinished business. But I used that to fuel me in the horse industry. And I used that push, and I said, no, I'm just going to get better at what I'm pivoting to.
So you made a comment that I want you to elaborate on a little bit. You made a comment along the lines just before that you stayed at home a lot and you rode that horse. I think that is one of the most basic things but underrated with horse trainers today, because there are so many shows, there are so many big money shows that you can't get them trained on the road the way you can get them trained at home. You know what I mean? You just can't. Okay, you can take them with you and ride them, but it doesn't matter whether you're cutter, cow horse, reiner, roper. You're not going to be able to be as diligent as you can train one at home as on the road as what you can train one at home. Talk about that part of it, how that made a huge, what you think about that statement about just, there seems to be something to be said about just staying your ass home and riding them. You know, I asked Cole Price a couple of years ago. Cole Price is a reiner, and the last couple of years he's done very well. And I asked him, I said, what the fuck is going on with you? What changed for you? You know, you were always competitive, but you really kind of stepped up there for a period of time. And he said, Clinton, I decided to stay home. He said, I'm going to a horse show every 8 weeks now. He said, I'd rather stay home and ride my good ones and get them broke, and when I go to the horse show, they're ready, rather than be gone every second or third week and just trying to hurry through them all.
I think there was another thing that happened with me, and I literally learned that, you know, I always thought I was a good horse trainer, and I thought I was better than the rest of the ropers and blah, 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 and people would tell me that. But essentially, when I quit going to the rodeos, my brain changed a little bit, and I slowed back down, and I started feeling my horses, and I started riding 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds again, and I started riding them out, and I spent more time. And instead of being on the phone trading at the rodeos and planning where I'm going to go and doing this and doing that, and then running home and riding them for 2 days and then leaving for a week and then running home and riding them. No. I was there the whole time. And I just started building my own method. And honestly, I built a team roping, training heel horses method. And I believe it works for me, but I need to be there 5 days a week to do it.
Yeah.
I have to do it. And I just stuck with it. And I took my time, and I let those horses kind of marinate a little bit, you know, and I felt like I started hitting some home runs with horses, and it wasn't an intention. I was just training horses the way I felt the best of my ability. And the next thing you know, we started getting some AQHA world champions, and they were just horses that I rode 5 days a week.
But somebody else was showing them, correct? You were training them, and when they get to a certain point, you'd hand them off to JD.
Yes.
Is that how it went?
100%.
Right.
And he had a great program, so it was a seamless transition. He would come up and ride him at my house in Oregon, throw a leg over him, said, "Yep, you bet, I love this horse, it can work." And it was very seamless because he's such a great horseman, and he had a great program. They just went right into his barn, and he was very successful. And we started selling some and winning world titles, and we were it was very, very much a team effort.
And you got a lot of personal pleasure out of the training part of them?
Even more. I got more pleasure out of seeing my horses win than I ever did for myself. It's a different thing.
Yeah,
and it feels like my kids almost, you know?
Yeah.
You're watching them, but then as you back it up, it's different than buying a colt. It's different. When you raise them and they're out of your mares and you've thought about what stud to breed, that's the game. It's a long game, but you want to get everything right, you know? And then you realize, you know what? That wasn't great. Let's try this. Let's try that. But I also had another little bit of a mentor, kind of a behind the scene mentor who's, you know, you probably don't know him that well, but you know his son real well, and that was Don Avila. And Don Avila was Bob Avila's dad. So while I was doing this, Don Avila, he was very friendly to me, and he lived just down the road. In fact, he lived halfway between our place in Prineville and my new place in Bend. So while I was building this place for a couple of years, I would stop in and we would have coffee. He's like, "Stop in for coffee." And we'd sit in his little barn office, and I just loved his demeanor, and I loved he was old school, Benny Catrone. He was like those guys, and he loved to rope the lead steer. And he would come over once in a while. He'd come over and watch me rope at the house. Whenever I roped at a rope or a jackpot, he'd come over and watch me. You know, he'd go through my tack room and look at my bridles, and I'd get embarrassed because he'd say, "Oh, what the hell bridle is this?" You know? But he was my kind of guy. He was old school.
What did you pick up from him?
Breeding. The breeding side of it. He had a stud, and I had those same mares, and I bred him to my mares to his stud. And then, honestly, I mean, I'm sitting in his office in his barn, and he's got AQHA gold trophies everywhere. But he's the most humble guy you'd ever, and his smile on his face, and just how he was talking about the studs and the colts. And we'd rope the lead steer at his place, just little old arena, and rope the lead steer on these 3-year-olds. But I learned from watching again. And his horses, I felt like he just had like a little remote control in a little box, and they worked perfectly in that little box. He wasn't out here. He was old school. He might have had him in a heavier headgear, but those old horses, they moved together. They were very connected. And I would watch them, and they were perfect in their leads, and they were in that little joy box, and he could rope the lead steer with me. And he was probably 70 plus at that time. But I just loved how he was. And I'd listen to his stories, and then he'd probably listen to my BS, but we kind of hit it off.
Yep.
And I started breeding, you know, I bred to his stud, and then we rode those colts, and he kind of wanted to see how they'd be, and he'd give me a little advice here or there. But really, I felt like the road I was going down breeding my horses was just a little bit off. And what I was missing was I figured out those mares were going to produce, but I didn't have my own stallion. I had a stallion I wasn't quite happy with. So I went to Carol Rose's on a whim, and I called her up. She didn't know me from Adam. I said, I'd like to come look at some of your fillies. And I wanted to get some Shining Spark fillies, just
Why?
like everybody.
Why? Just
Because
'cause they
I'd
were
done my
popular?
research. I'd been reading the Quarter Horse News, and, you know, 88% of the cow horse finalists were out of Shining Spark mares. I need some Shining Spark mares. Okay.
Now, at this point, are you thinking still breed for roping, or you're wanting to get into cow horse?
Both.
When does cow horse come into your breeding program?
I would say both, but I think it was far-fetched at that point. I was still breeding rope horses.
Okay, so you're
But at this
primarily
point, I'm
rope horse.
thinking I'm breeding cow horses.
What'd you say, sorry?
I'm thinking I'm breeding cow horses.
Okay.
But realistically, I'm out to lunch. I'm just breeding. I'm breeding average athletes that can stop, and I'm doing a good job of spending time on them. And so I went to Carol's, and on a whim, she said, "Come on down." And I came down, and I rode a couple 2-year-olds. It was in the spring, fillies, and I get on one or two. Jay McLaughlin was working for her at that time.
Okay.
And Sarah, I believe, was there. Sarah Dawson was working there as well. I think, it was eye-opening for me to see that many and I knew the bloodlines before I ever went. I'd done some research. I knew what I was looking for, but I was priced out a little bit. Like she was, I want 75 for that 2-year-old. I want 75. I want 100. Oh, that one's not for sale. I want 50. And at the end of the whole thing, I bought one filly, but I walked out of there, and I ended up buying a stallion. And the stallion was a full brother to Little Miss Shiny Checks.
Okay.
And his name was Shiner Zelina Checks. And he was in the barn. She owned him with a partner, and I ended up riding him for 2 days. I stayed for a couple days, and I rode that horse.
And how old was he when you rode
I
him?
want to say he's probably 7.
Okay, so what did he done?
They'd
for
showed
7
Chris Dawson had showed him a little bit. I think Zane Davis and Chris Dawson. I think maybe Zane was there at some
Yeah.
point and rode the horse, but Chris had showed him a little bit, and the horse ended up going crippled in the hind end, and he had some iron in his back leg. But I was more about, I loved his look, I love his feel. What I wasn't too concerned about his soundness. I was going to breed him.
Yeah, you weren't buying him
I was going to breed him. So I took him home and I started breeding him to my own mares. And the first year I bred him to 2 mares, and I had 3 colts, and they all were world champions after I trained them and went through that whole cycle. And so
With
now
JD
yeah,
showed him.
JD did it. C.R. Bradley rode one of them, and JD rode 2 of them.
Okay.
And so it just started this cycle. Oh, okay. Well, it took a few years to get to that point, but I'm like, okay, I'm kind of onto something here. And then I ended up visiting with Les Vogt in Reno one time, because I would go to Reno and I'd watch the snaffle bit and I would obsess. I was one of the guys.
What made you have the cow horse bug? Why did you start developing the cow horse bug?
The quality of the horses, watching the quality of the athlete and saying, I need better athletes. If I'm going to breed these horses, if I'm going to go through all this crap and I'm going to breed stallion to mare, I need a better stopping athlete. I need a better agile athlete. I need a better thinking athlete. And at that point, Carol Rose's program was second to none.
Yeah,
especially
she's
in the cow
dominating.
horse. And so she kind of took me under her wing, and she was really good to me and kind of mentored me a little bit, I would say, in her way,
Yeah.
which I loved, because she was all about her program and her horses. Trainers to her were just, they were going to go through there.
Yeah.
But it was all about the best thing for her program, and I understood that. And so I kept breeding that horse internally. I just had my little band of ranch horse, rope horse mares.
What, you got 10 by this point?
I might have had. I think I had less than that at that
Fair
point.
enough.
But by the end of this cycle, we bred that horse 48 times to my horses, and he won 12 AQHA World Championships.
So the odds are very
Unbelievable.
much good.
Very, very nice horse. You know, I knew he was a great horse based on feel, and I'd done some history, so I knew what he was out of Little Miss Smarty Checks and Shining Spark, and, you know, I had done what I needed to do. And I was trying to cross him on some better mares and do what I needed to do. But essentially, I was just crossing him on my ranch horses. But my ranch horses and rope horses, I'd roped on. I'd trained them and roped on them, so I knew what they were. And so then I was riding the babies, and then JD was doing very well. So it was a really nice kind of a partnership that we had going.
Real Cow is the most realistic mechanical cow on the market. It has the feel of a live cow all at the touch of a button. Its unique rubber track allows it to run smoothly over any surface, and it has the battery power to work horses all day. Real Cow Training Systems makes mechanical cows for cutting, reined cow horse, and calf roping. NCHA and NRCHA top competitors are using Real Cow in their everyday training programs. Join the list of competitors who use the Real Cow by visiting realcowtraining.com to find out more. Mention you heard about us on Clinton Anderson's Uncut and Real Raw podcast for additional discounts.
This year, everything changes.
You can go fast alone, you can go far together, and there's no doubt we can go a lot further than we'll ever imagine.
We have the chance to pay out $1 million this year.
If we have a Cell graduate win first, it's $1 million bonus.
The amount of money is amazing, and I think that it's going to get nothing but better.
That's going to be a game-changing and a life-changing experience.
From the Cell ring to the $1 million arena. Join us at Old West. Learn more at oldwest.com.
This episode is brought to you in part by DT Horses, the elite Western performance breeder for cutting, cow horse, and rope horse futurity prospects. At what point did you say you wanted to get more, did you start getting more serious about the cow horse side of it, or the roping, or did one take over the other a little bit, or did you both keep developing them at the same time, do you think?
I think I got deeper into the cow horse, and I think it was just passion, watching those horses.
Do you remember who your first cow horse trainer was that you hired?
Jake Telford.
Jake Telford.
Jake Telford. So Jake roped a little bit. I had met him in Idaho, and I followed his career a little bit because he was a rope horse trainer. And Jake's just such an easy guy to talk to.
He is.
And so Jake was married to a gal from Central Oregon who was friends. Her family was friends with my wife's family. So I watched his career a little bit, and this guy, all of a sudden, he's winning, and he's $1 million rider. And, I called him up. I said, I got a Shining Spark stud. I've got a couple fillies I'd like to send you. Would you be interested in riding them? He said, absolutely, send them over. And at the time, I believe Jason Gay was riding his 2-year-olds. And Jason was a heck of a 2-year-old guy. He still is, probably.
Yes, he is.
Great guy. So he was riding those horses, and they didn't make it as cow horses. So then I brought him back, roped on them, and then developed them. And wow, these are nice horses. But they did a really nice job with the 2-year-old.
What did you notice, even though they didn't make the grade for the cow horse, what did you notice from the horsemanship perspective when you got them back and you got to rope on them? What changed for you? Because this is the first time you've got horse trainers back from a cow horse trainer. What was positive? What was negative? What did you notice from that experience?
At that point, it was all positive because it was all they felt broker and they were naturally stopping. Now, both in the cases of those horses, they weren't cowy enough. They were Shining Spark horses. They were out of my mares. They just weren't cowy enough. They would chase a cow. They might pin their ears on a cow, chasing a cow, but they were not going to cut a cow.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a moot point. It was like, we're going to keep doing this, but it's not going to work. And so as I got a little deeper into it and I kept going, I believe I got to know Trent Peterson a little bit too. And we were walking through. Went to Reno to watch the snaffle bit, and Trent was showing a horse for me. I had a little Cat's Murata mare that I bought. It was going to breed to my Shiner stud. And we were walking through the foyer at Reno, and this guy's walking towards me, and he's got his mustache and his long boots, and, it looks like Matt Cook, right? But it's Nick Dowers.
Okay.
And he's walking towards us, and he walks by, and Trent says, that's a guy you need to start your colts. And I said, who's that? And he said, that's Nick Dowers. Okay. Looks like a buckaroo.
Yeah.
Off he goes. I kind of put that in my mind. I watched the rest of the show. Doesn't go great for my horse. No big deal. I watched the finals online. I'm not there for the finals because my horse doesn't make it. Who wins it? Nick Dowers on his own horse. Wow. Not only is that guy a colt starter, but he's pretty damn handy. Right?
Yeah.
This was his one-time Pepto stud.
Yep.
Time for the Diamond. I can't remember what year that was. I'm going to say 12, 13, somewhere in there. And so me being bold and being kind of in a rough spot because I had too many colts for Telford to take, and Telford was busy. And if they weren't going to make cow horses, Telford was like, I'd love to ride your horses, but I think they're all rope horses, you know? And I was like, I get it.
And in some ways, you could just appreciate his honesty.
It was good.
A lot of horse trainers would have just kept taking your money and not fucking put the time into it.
And he was always very good with me.
Yeah.
And so then I just cold called Nick Dowers week after he wins the snaffle bit. And I said, hi, I'm Dean Tuftin. I've got some horses. I've got a Shining Spark stud. I've got a bunch of stuff. Maybe something can be cow horse, but the bottom line is I hear you're the guy to start them. And I said, ha ha, but I'm sure you're probably not going to, not going to be interested. Absolutely. How many do you have? I've got 7. Do you want to take 7 of them? Yep, you bet. But I only charge when I ride them, and I'll charge you a board, and that's it, because I'm going to be gone. I'm going to show. I want to take some time off an elk hunt. And, he's telling me, he's just being honest. And I'm like, I hang the phone up and go, that's the most honest conversation I've ever had with a horse trainer in my life. And I hung up the phone. And I said, I love them already. And I take my horses down there. We drop 7 of them off. And he says, but I want them out of here by September 15th. I'm going to ride these 2-year-olds for you. I'm going to ride them all around the ranch. And I said, perfect, perfect, perfect. But I want them out of here by September 15th because I'm going to the snaffle bit. When I get done the snaffle bit, I'm going elk hunting, and I don't want these colts here. No problem. First year 1, I get my 7 colts back. Every horse was bought in. Every horse was soft to some degree. They're all very limited, some less limited than others. There were some talented ones. He was spot on with what he said every single time. This one was a little front endy. This one's a little pushy. This one's a little worried. And it was like the bills were accurate. The bills represented the time that he put on the horses. And he would send me videos similar to you. He'd send me a video and he's ranching and he's got them in the back of the trailer and they're whinnying and banging around. And then he sends me a video and they're head to tail with salt blocks on them going across the ranch. My colts, right? And I'm just loving every bit of this because I'm like, this is what makes great horses, right?
Yes, it is.
So I fell in love with Nick, and honestly, he just got too good and too good for my horses. And he did
Meaning
this
the quality of stock
100%. He needed some. He didn't need to be wasting time on my rope horses, but he did. Several of those horses went on, and JD, one of them was Air Jordan, 2-time ARHFA head horse of the year. Nick started him. We trained him, sent him to JD. JD hit it out of the park with him. So there were several of these horses. It was a nice recipe. But unfortunately, his success limited our relationship at that point because he just couldn't ride a bunch of rope horses for me. He didn't have time. So I reached a point at
And I'm sure once he won the futurity, he was getting better horses sent to him, better bred ones.
It
doesn't mean just because they're better bred doesn't mean they're always going to be better. But I get your drift.
Yeah. And he was very honest with me. So I think we got to the last year where he took a couple. I think I had a Smart Boone's colt that was a real handful, and I had another Shiner's Lena Checks colt that was a handful. Both turned out to be great rope horses, but he was just super honest. And every time I got him back, but then I started seeing a difference, and I started seeing some of these rope horse crossed horses, and I get them back from Nick, and all of a sudden they are good enough to cow horse. There's 2 or 3 of them. There's 2 of them. One of them won second in their intermediate with Brandon Butters. And they weren't good enough. Well, I'll tell you what, with the right start, they were good enough. And Nick proved that for me. And then Kelby started working for me, and he was riding some of these horses and training them, and it was kind of fun.
Tell me how you went. Tell me what caused you to have your own in-house cow horse trainer with Kelby. Was he the first in-house cow horse trainer you ever hired? What made you have that move? Were you getting so many cow horses, breeding them, that it was just from a financial point?
Yeah, we had enough growth that we really needed a full-time guy. And Jake Telford, I reached out to Jake. I said, Jake, I'm kind of in a spot now. Nick can't ride him anymore, or can only ride a few. He said, well, if you need a guy, do you know who Kelby Phillips is? I said, well, I know the name. He rides Hickory Hill all the time. I said, oh, okay. He's down in Arizona. He might be interested. So we just started visiting back and forth, and then that led to me hiring him.
Okay, so at that point, he's already got Hickory Holly time in training.
Yes.
Had he won a lot on the horse at that point?
I believe he had, yeah. He was probably 5 when he came up there.
Okay.
So he had won, I think he'd won the intermediate on him. He had probably won 100,000 on the horse and showed him.
So he comes to work for you because you've got enough cow horses now that you can keep most of them in-house.
Well, I thought I had enough cow horses. I still had a bunch of rope horses at that point.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What, because eventually you bought Hickory Holly time.
Yeah.
What impressed you about that horse? Once he got to your ranch, you don't own him.
Sure.
Gardeners owned him at the time, didn't they?
Sir.
Garth and Amanda.
Yes, sir.
So what did you see in that horse that said, I need to buy that horse? What made you say, I need that stud?
It was pretty instant. He was just so much stronger, and he was an amazing fence horse. And the way that I got into this cow horse thing, I was really, really passionate about the same characteristics in a great rope horse or in a great fence horse. They've got to be able to run, turn, read the cow, be on a loose rein at some point, and really be be reading the cow. It goes too fast to be manually functioning. And every time I saw Kelby show him down the fence, it was just always, he could handle cattle that were very difficult. And it wasn't like he didn't need the best cow in the pen. In fact, he would make he'd make a tough cow look too easy sometimes. He was very, very good. There was just a handful of great fence horses at that point. Call Me Mitch was one of them. You know, and Hickory Holly Time, like, they just stood out. If there was a fence, they were just natural fence horses.
Avila always
good
told
cutters,
me,
good reiners, but natural fence.
Avila's always told me, he said, great fence horses are born, not made.
I agree.
He said, you don't make them. They're just naturally that good.
Yeah.
He was a firm believer. He told me that many times. Great fence horses are not born, are not made. They're born.
We say the same thing about rope horses.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially heel horses. For me, you know, when I grew up, I would watch the NFR, and then when I got to know the guys better, the great heel horses got recycled. They still do. The top 5 guys, this guy wins the world on them, and all of a sudden he decides he's going to sell them, and this guy buys them, and then he wins the world on them. It's going on right now. Patrick Smith's horse is bouncing around from the top guys. Now Jade Corkill has them again. The great heel horses are very, very difficult to make. And then the great ones, they can't be made. They're born.
They're just born
They're
that way.
born.
So during that period of Kelby being there, did you try to change your breed? If you realized you had a lot more rope horses than what you had cow horses, did you try to change your cow horse breeding?
Yeah.
Did you buy more cow horse mares? What did you do with your breeding program during, how many years was Kelby there? 4 or 5, something like that?
Yeah.
So what did you change from a breeding perspective during those years? Did you recognize, okay, I don't have enough cow in my horses? What did you recognize during that time?
Yeah, 100%. And whatever you're lacking, you always kind of reach too far for sometimes. And it was like, we need cutting mares. We got to get some cutting mares in here. We got to breed, you know, we need to do this and we need to do that. And I started watching more cuttings, and I started looking at the sales and looking at what was winning. And Kelby helped tremendously trying to figure out how to get better horses. But at the end of the day, you know, I ended up, once again, Carol got a hold of me and said, I don't know if you're interested, but I'm thinking about selling Little Miss Shiny checks. And at that point, I damn sure knew who she was. And
she was already a proven producer that
100%.
Right.
And she said, I don't know if you're interested. And I said, well, I have to think about it. And Leslie and I talked about it. And she said, well, if you're serious about this and you think she'd be a good asset, maybe this makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, instead of trying to prove a bunch of unproven mares, let's start out with a proven mare that still has a lot of life left in her. And it seemed like she could be bred to a dual ray or whatever, and she was still making some great horses. So we bit the bullet and we bought her, and we started that process. So we bred her, and when I bought her, Carol had 1910 was in a surrogate mare at that point. So I got him on the deal.
Yep.
And it turned out that, you know, Kelby was reserve champion at the Snaffle bit on that horse as well. So, you know, she was a big part of really our success in the cow horse industry. But yes, we were trying to get some other mares, and we were trying to improve our mare herd. Sometimes hitting, sometimes missing. More missing than hitting, I would say.
But I don't think that's odd though, Dean, because, you know, we'd all like to say as breeders everything we breed's a fucking champion, but it's fucking not.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more misses in the breeding game than what there are hits. You know what I mean? On paper, they can look phenomenal, but they just don't turn out that good. You know what I mean? You know, you're trying, of course, but I think that's a very realistic statement. Is that you're obviously trying to breed the best, but it's Mother Nature. You can't guarantee what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So tell me about Hickory Holly Time. When you bought him, did you even remotely think that he might be a roping? Did you buy him with the goal of making him a roping sire, or did you buy him with the goal of he was going to be a cow horse sire? Because it seems like later in his career, he's more so dominated in the rope horse world and didn't do as well in the cow horse world. But was that your original thought, or how did that end up that way? What was your goal when you bought that horse? Like, obviously impressed you as an athlete, but were you thinking, okay, this could be my rope horse champion?
Well, to be real honest with you, Kelby had roped on him a little bit. So when he brought him up there, Kelby could rope. So, you know, I was roping every day.
Yeah.
So Kelby'd jump on him, and he might just rope the dummy with me, or he would rope some steers on. We roped the lead steer on, and he impressed me right out the bat. I mean, the horse looked like a rope horse. He's a bridled up, soft rope horse that ate the ground up, you know, and he did all the training on him, but I got to get on him and rope on him a little bit, and I headed on him a little bit before the first World's Greatest. He said, here, rope on him, you mess with him, and I did, and it was very apparent. I mean, he had all the tools to be a great rope horse producer. as well as a cow horse producer. But at that point, we just weren't producing. We were breeding honestly, a lot of cat mares. You know, them first 2 or 3 years, there was a lot of reject cutters, and there was a lot of, they were cutting horses that we were breeding, and then they ended up, you know, being cow horses.
Right.
And later on, now I look what's getting bred, and it's rope horses. I mean, there's rope horse people that are breeding to him now.
Yeah.
Because he's proven. Now he's almost a $5 million sire. You know, he's doing very, very well. But he had those raw characteristics of being a great fence horse, which are the same as being a great rope horse. And you're seeing both things. Now, I was a little naive at the time, because you're so excited about things sometimes that you're naive.
Yeah.
You know, you're just hoping for the best and hoping for the best. It could have went terribly wrong, but it turned out he was a producer. And that's odd as well.
Why do you think that he didn't get good enough mares to give him a chance to be a bigger cow horse sire? Or do you think the progeny just got more trained for the rope horse? Why do you think the rope horse part of it really took off these last few years and the cow horse didn't? And I don't mean that derogatory, but I'm just saying, was there a certain set of circumstances that made that horse really dominate the rope, and where he didn't quite dominate the you know what I mean?
I think, you know, I watched intently the first few years at the snaffle bit, and I believe there was 3 years right off the bat, and he had more open finalists than any other horse.
Okay.
I don't think people realize that.
No, I didn't.
But honestly, it was like 2019, 20, and 21. But it didn't go great. The finals just didn't go great. Sarah Dawson fell circling a cow to probably win second one year. You know, Andrea making it back on big time, and he had a chance to win it. There was a lot of these scenarios that could go one way or another way. And as you look back, sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not in the cow horse industry. And I think, honestly, some of them were big, really strong reiners. Some of the Hickory Hollytown have looked really good in the reining. Some have looked good in the cutting. Some have looked good on the fence. It's been a little bit of a mixture and a hit and miss. But as this has happened, the cutting horse industry has really, really married themselves up to the cutters. Yeah. And they're just breeding so many more cutters than they used to breed.
I would agree. But one of my comments to that question I asked you would have been, I just have to say it like this. Like, I truly think until Scooter Cat came along, it wasn't fashionable to breed to a cow horse stud. I don't know why, because you'd think if it was a great cow horse stud that could do all 3 events and kick ass, and you want to breed a cow horse, breed to a cow horse stud. But it's almost like cow horse people didn't support their own studs in that business. They always wanted to go to a cutting sire, where Scooter Cat is, to me, one of the few first one, but I really think the cow horse industry is getting behind.
I agree.
To actually breed cow horses too. But it was almost looked down upon to breed to a cow horse stud. Well, why breed to a cow horse stud when I can go to a cutting stud 100%. And get the same thing or better?
100%.
And maybe that, do you think there's any validity to what I just said there? Do you
think it's huge. Yeah. I think it's huge. I think you have proven cow horse studs, and they're not really backing them up. The industry kind of bailed on them.
See, I would rather breed to a cow horse stud, because a lot of cutters, cutting bred horses like that, or straight cutters, they can't do the reining.
No.
They can't go down the fence very well, even though they might have cutting bloodline. Is a certain type and a shape of a horse and conformation, and more so mind, that enable those horses to gallop down the fence and swallow up a cow. And to me, if I'm going to breed a cow horse, breed to something that was a cow horse. Breed to something that's got that shape. Now there's quite a few of them. You've got hazardous material. You've got Scooter Cat. You know, you've got Call Me Mitch. You know, there's been quite a few now over the years that have really proven themselves, not just 1 or 2 years, but every year.
Yeah.
They've showed up to the world's greatest horsemen at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old studs that can do it in all 3 events.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're spot on. I just think, you know, I think originally when I got to know Andrea, he just lives down the road from me, and, you know, we kind of hit it off. And we hit it off because I admire him as a trainer and just a great guy. I love straightforward guys, and he's a straightforward dude, and I love it. But we really got on a conversation one day, and we were talking the same way you and I were. And he said, I see a great cow horse as traveling a little bit more like a reiner than a cutter. And then he said, I'm going to cow horse. And I said, really, you are? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I always wanted to do it. I'm going to do it. And I said, well, if I get a horse for you, or if I get a horse, I'd love to let you train it. And so we missed on a couple. And we let him try it. And then we got big time, and he trained him. and he trained him from start to finish. We got him started a little bit at the ranch, and I said, I think I got one for you. You know,
and he was by Hickory Holly Time.
Yeah, he's Hickory Holly Time out of Little Miss Shiny Checks.
Yep.
And, you know, he's won over 100 now. Chris Dawson's riding him right now, but Andrea trained him. And Andrea, watching him train that horse, we got into a lot of those conversations about how he moves. He moves like a reiner, but he can cut enough. He's obviously the cutting is weak, but last night at the Derby, he was 219. So it's not that weak.
Yeah.
It's weak enough, but the reining has been his strength.
Yeah.
And I believe that horse, and now he's now I believe he's a better fence horse than he is a reiner. But I think there's a correlation in how they travel. You know, and I go back to training heel horses. I don't want them to travel downhill. I want them to travel uphill. When you got to go fast, I need those uphill withers. I need to feel that in the turns. I don't want to feel them pushing down on me. And I feel like the cutters naturally are bred to be downhill a little bit more. And so, you know, Carol told me that years ago when I was breeding Little Miss Shiny Checks, and she was mentoring me a little bit. She said, what are you going to breed her to this year? And I'd tell her, and she goes, what the hell are you breeding her to a cutter for? Oh, well, so-and-so says I should do this, or, you know, she's like, no, they're not going to be able to get down the fence, sweetheart.
Yeah.
I'm like, I needed to hear it, right? And so I kept doing it and kind of, you know, I kept dabbling, but as I was dabbling, you know, my heart's always been in the rope horse stuff, you know, obsessed about it. So now I've got these athletes, and now I'm kind of seeing the growth of the rope horse industry, which I was a part of it.
Yes.
You know, the original rope horse futurity, I brought it. I felt like
They won at Fort Worth.
I went to the Snafflebit, you know, meetings, and I got it in there, and actually through Jake Telford's help, we got it in there, and it grew. And as it was growing, I started settling and going, you know what? Even myself, I want to breed more for the rope horse side of it, but I still have some nice cow horse mares, so I'm going to do a little bit of both. And that's where I am now.
Do you think would you say you're maybe 25% cow horses and 75% rope horse?
I would say, yeah, it's probably really an accurate number right now.
Is that a good combination?
Yeah, but I'm also, you know, cognitive the fact that there are some off mares once in a while that if you breed them the right way, you never know what you're going to get. But it's very, very, very lucky if it happens. I think great cow horses have to be out of great mares. I just think that. I think you can get some reject rope horses off of different mares, but when it comes to the cow horse industry, man, oh man, the mare matters.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
Now, you've made a comment to me before that that you believe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I got this wrong, but you believe too much cutting bloodline in these rope horses is bad because they'll get to be too looky at a cow, too feely in a box, too hot.
Yeah.
And I also think that, to me, if they too much cutting bloodlines from what I can see in these cow horses, especially in the reining, they just stop on all fours. You know, they won't pedal up front. They, you know, a cutter is like, stop now, like all 4 feet, stop in the ground.
Sure.
They've been breeding them like that for 80 years. You know what I mean? That might be exaggerated, but at least 50. They've been breeding them like that for 50 years. A reiner, you need them to break loose in front. Even going down the fence, they got to break loose and come through that turn. So, to talk to me about why you think you've made the comment that you want to back off some of that cutting bloodline in your rope horses.
I think trial and error. I think, you know, I started out, I remember having some conversations with a couple people and talking about the one-time mares, and they go, man, those one-time Peptos, they can be a handful. And I was arrogant enough to think, yeah, but in my training program, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Well, but unfortunately, you know, I've rode enough now out of some of the cutting mares, and I've had a couple dual rays and a couple just different mares and trained them, and I can put them through the same program. But I feel like people will, you know, it feels like is this horse not retaining this? What the hell is going on? Why am I still beating him up and down and trying to get him to, you know, free that front end up and do this and do that? And then I look and I'm like, man, they're this wide in the back end stopping, and you know, there's characteristics of them going down. You see it in the cow horse reining now. You watch them run them down there and stop them, and those horses will get super wide and hit their front end and get down and then have to recover, or they'll just hit on all fours. Well, and then the heeling, what happens is when we're going to heel, you're at your absolute most vulnerable when you're delivering your rope, because both hands have to go to your target. So literally, we can't hold or balance the reins. We actually are up over the front of our saddle sometimes. And boy, you'll hit that front end and it'll just jar you and your bottom strand. will hit hard, or it just doesn't, it's not smooth. And when you get on a horse that can pedal a little bit, just a couple little
Pedal with
pedals,
their front feet,
it's huge. You can finish your throw, get your slack, be relaxed, right? And that piece of it, I've learned to kind of go through it, because I just started out with a bunch of those shiner bred horses, and I just thought I was a training sucker. But honestly, they were reiners.
Yeah, they were
They were
reiners,
just
yeah.
a bunch of reiners. And so I've gone full circle now back to where I love that bloodline to heel out of. I love more reiner bloodline out of the heel horses. And then conversely, the team roping industry is really set into two ways. It's these reining horse or cross. It can be cow horses, it can be reiners, it can be the Hickory Holly Times doing very well in the heeling. But then in the heading, it's almost turned into this racehorse, barrel horse game. And that's where the barrel horse rejects are kind of lining up, and they're doing very, very well.
Why do you think they've gone that way for the head?
Easy run. I don't think they panic in the box as much as the cutting horses. The cutting horses can get very nervous and a little worried on those cows and in the box. I get it all the time. I've helped lots of the guys with the roping and stuff for the World's Greatest Horseman, and they come over, and those horses that can cut, they're not quiet in the box.
No, they notice
They're
everything,
hot.
don't they? They
They're
notice
hot.
everything.
They're bred to do that. But these race horses will just stand there, and they'll take the pressure and take the pull, because they're not scared of speed either.
Yeah.
And they're not scared. They're not making every move off that cow. They're just running. They're running in their lane. So really, I see two different styles of horses: the barrel horse bred horses on the head end, the reining horse bred horses or crosses on the heel end. And that's kind of how I look at
So
it.
you need on the heel horse or head horse, you need enough cow in them to where they recognize a cow. They kind of have a little bit of inclination to go towards it.
Sure.
But they certainly can't be too cowy, too watchy, too looky. You know, Andrea and I have talked about the difference between training trying to make a cow-bred horse, a cutting-bred horse look like a reiner, and it's about makes you want to shoot yourself in the head. Yeah. They notice every fucking sign in the arena. They notice every fly on the fence. I mean, they are just aware of their surroundings. You know what I mean? Where a good reiner is almost dumb and quiet. Put your head down. Don't look at anything. Doug Carpenter always used to say, reiners need to be sleepy-eyed and quiet, and cutters need to be bright-eyed and aware. And when you're trying to get a bright-eyed, aware, especially a filly that's kind of hot, and you're trying to get her to bridle up and look like a reiner, good luck with that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're living my pain. I mean, now we've rode, 100 of these horses. We've healed on 100 of them. And I can say, by and large, if there's a lot of cutting blood in there, they see the tail. When that steer gets turned, if the head, a lot of times the steer will take the turn and maybe throw his horns up, and those horses might kick out a lead. Those ears and that hind. As soon as the ears move, the hind lead kicks out, and then you're forcing them up in there. And if you're forcing them up in there, nothing's going to be smooth and right. So yeah, I mean, there's guys. It's no secret. I mean, they believe if you believe you can heel on a cutter, all the power to you. For me, I'd prefer more of a reiner mix.
I'm not just hearing you say that, Dean. I've had several podcasts here that are coming out in the next few months from people in the rope horse futurity industry, and they're all saying the same thing. So I see a big change that, and not only that, it's so much more specialized now. You guys aren't buying just reject cutters anymore. You can't make a reject cutter a big-time rope horse futurity horse anymore. No. You know what I mean? Those days are over. Up until, 7-8 years ago now, you guys could just constantly buy rejects at 20 cents on the dollar from reiners, cutters, or cow horses and try to make them work in your world. That's not happening anymore.
No, I agree 100%.
Would you agree with that or not?
120%. I think everybody's getting this education as this rope horse thing grows, and as the education. I mean, that's kind of where I think the next evolution for the rope horse futurity is. I honestly believe the next thing is the shortcoming that we've talked about, and that's trainers. Where are we going to get the trainers to train all these horses?
And in fact, we'll stop now, freshen up a cocktail, come back, and that's the next chapter. I want to talk about the next generation of the different events, the horsemanship, colt starting. I want to kind of get into the horsemanship part of it. But one thing I'll say before I quit, I really hope that with Scooter Cat being so successful, that the cow horse industry will really start supporting cow horse sires. Not just that horse. There's other really good ones out there. But if we want a cow horse, breed to a fucking cow horse that looks like a cow horse, acts like a cow horse, runs like a cow horse, and really try to give those sires a chance to make it work rather than, I'll just go to whatever he's by. I'll just go to that sire.
Well, I believe 100% in what you're saying, and I believe in it so much that I've even done it. My few cow horses that I'm breeding to a proven horse that can get down the fence.
Yes.
I just
Because
am.
you've always said that's where it's won and lost, correct?
That's
it
it,
doesn't
every
matter what
time.
you do in all the events. The one that really matters is going down the
Sure,
fence. It seems to be what's the only thing, I don't know if the word's unfair. I was going to say unfair, but I shouldn't. But it seems a little unfair that, you know, to mark a 220 or 221, 22 in the cutting over reining, it's got to be a pretty damn good run, okay? Yeah. But you can sure as shit have a big fence run and make a 25, 26, 27. And like goddamn, the split of points is amazing. What you can make up in
There's
that
a big
one
spread.
event.
Yeah.
It's a big spread.
Yeah, it is.
Like you don't ever see somebody marking a 226, 227 in the reining over cutting. But you can sure as shit do that going down the fence if it's a damn good run and you know everything comes together. Of course.
Yeah, and that's how I look at it.
That's a big spread, and it's like, man, if you're gonna focus on any one of those three events, you better focus more on the fence work than the other two because that's the one that you can really make up the most points.
I agree, and I think I go right back to Little Miss Shiny Checks, and when I said that, she's made a lot of great fence horses.
Mm-hmm.
She was a great fence horse herself. She was a world champion bridle horse.
Mm-hmm. But none of her foals, correct me if I'm wrong, when I say none, they're not known for being the most cowy, correct?
100%.
Where their weaknesses is the cutting.
100%.
But where their strength was the reining and going down the fence.
Right.
Is that a right or wrong statement?
No, you are spot on. But they were so good reigners, and a lot of them, if they're great fence horses, those are two very strong, important categories. Mm-hmm. If they're cowy enough and you've got them decent enough in the cutting, let's get through the cutting, and let's go beat them in the reining and beat them in the fence. That's how
I've had
look
several
at it.
cow horse trainers tell me that the cowy they are in the cutting, the bigger pain in the ass they are to get down the fence.
That's what we've found with the heel horses as well.
They're either too tight or don't want to get in close enough or, you know, lock up all four.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've had many cow horse trainers actually tell me that the cowy they are, it usually bites you in the ass going down the fence.
I agree.
Right, let's find a break here. Let's freshen up a cocktail, come back for one last chapter, talk about the future of the industries, trainers, horsemanship, and we'll kind of wrap it up on that.
It's not easy making change. It's not easy raising champions. It's not easy breeding excellence. But the equine industry demands nothing less than the finest. That's when true greatness is born. At Valley Equine, we nurture that greatness every day. We cultivate the next generation of champions, the future icons of the arena. There's a lot of dedication involved, and we've been committed for more than a decade. Through trials and triumphs, we've been there, steadfast in our mission. Today, we are the leader in equine breeding, with specialized expertise in producing tomorrow's champions. We drive the evolution of equine excellence through innovation, empowering breeders to shape the future of the industry. We firmly believe that the world of equine breeding is constantly changing, and that we can too. Advance with us. We are Valley Equine, many years in the making and committed to excellence.
Visit valleyequinerepro.com to learn more.
How do you know what it takes to become successful? Talk to someone who's done it. Clinton Anderson became a multi-millionaire by leveraging his passion for horse training into a global brand and media empire, starting with nothing but the change in his pocket and the will to succeed. In doing so, he revolutionized an industry and became a celebrity. Now, you can put his experience and advice to work for your business. With Clinton Anderson's business consultancy, you can tap into Clinton's unique perspective, hear his straight talk, and get his no-nonsense advice. Just imagine yourself armed with Clinton's hard-earned knowledge and entrepreneurial spirit. So whether you own a ranch or any sort of business at all, we invite you to discover the transformative power of Clinton Anderson's leadership and innovation in your business. Call 1-888-287-7432 to take your business to the next level today.
Breaking Bad is a 2020 stallion by Stevie Ray Vaughan, out of the all-time leading broodmare Sweet Abra. He is dual-registered AQHA and APHA, and is 6-panel NN. At just 6 years old, he's already earned over $230,000 and is still showing. He is nominated to the major NCHA and NRCHA stallion programs, and is part of the new Legacy Bonus, which has an estimated payout of $1 million. to be paid at the NCHA Futurity. For more information or to request your breeding contract, contact Beau Gallion Stallion Services or Fultz Ranch at 806-672-6039.
This episode is brought to you in part by Valley Equine, managing stallions that represent the performance horse industry's finest. Let's talk about the horsemanship aspect of the horse industry. We spoke about the rope horse industry. We spoke about the cow horse industry. Tell me where you think, from a horsemanship perspective, where are these industries' Achilles heels, or things that, obviously we're booming right now. The whole horse industry in general, everything's booming, There's lots of different reasons. I personally think you can credit Taylor Sheridan for a lot of it, for what he's done for the Run for $1 Million, the cutting, the cow horse, he's made cowboy culture cool again. So I think a lot of the boom has come from that lifestyle of his TV shows, etc. But tell me where, with growth, it's always the back of the hand. Your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. So now we're in a boom where we're really growing, cutting, reining, cow horse, and rope horse maturity. What do you think the Achilles heel of those industries is today, if you had to talk about it? Where's our weak spots? Where are we going to be careful moving forward?
I think having educated people to train horses. Mm-hmm. I think you're one of the rare people that has really, really introduced the method. And your method is educational for people on so many levels. And then I think it gets a little foggy for people when they get into, maybe it's cow horse industry, or they get into the rope horse industry. I get guys that'll call me for a job in the rope horse industry, and they might go work for a trainer for 2 years, then they'll call me. And I watch them show their horses, and I'm like, no, it's just not going to get there, because I think their general horsemanship is just very, very weak. Mm-hmm. Some of them are very good with their rope, and they think that, well, I want to go rope. I want to go rope all day at Dean's. And I go, man, you'll be really disappointed, because we're training all day and we do rope, but it's really paying attention to the horses' softness, how broke they are, and how much they buy in. And I feel like I know there's some equine colleges out there, and there's programs. I have a young guy that's worked for me for almost 4 years, and he came through a program in New Mexico. And I showed up, and I think in my mind I thought he was further along than he was going to be. Mm-hmm. But he's wonderful. He's learned how to learn. He's learned how to work. He's wonderful, and he's been a great addition. You've met him, Strand. Yeah. And he's headed to Nick Dowers' next week to a 3-day clinic. Mm-hmm. And he's doing a great job, and he's roping at a great level, and he's getting better and better and better. And I look back on him, I told him the other day, I said, you're 22. I said, you're so far ahead of me at 22. I was still screwing crap up and blowing them up and trying to just figure out how to get them pulled around. And I said, you're getting all this knowledge right now, and I can just see it in you. I see the growth. And I look at him and I go, that kid had work ethic. He learned how to learn. Yeah. How are we going to get more kids like this in the industry? How are we going to grow more kids? And I truly feel...
So do you think the shortage is now we've got more horses to be trained for all
100%.
Rope horses, heading, heeling, cow horse, cutters. We've got more horses that need to be trained, quote unquote, than what we've got qualified trainers or young people to train them? Would you say, would that be a fair statement?
Yes, and with the growth of the rope horse industry, when I set out to start this rope horse industry, my idea was to showcase the best horses in America, but also to maybe grow an industry. Mm-hmm. And look at where we're at now. All right, now how are we going to employ that industry? Yeah. How are these kids going to learn it? And you look at the equine industry, and you look at some of these equine colleges, they'll have a 2-year program and have 20 kids in there learning how. Well, let's teach them how to train a rope horse. Mm-hmm. Let's actually give them some of those tasks. Let's teach them how to rope the dummy and how to do all this, because we're going to need full-time employees that can do all these things, not just me. When you're having a horse sale and we're selling $1.7 million for a rope horse mare, we're going to need people. Yeah. And I think that these programs can fit this, and I would be looking for these kids to come work for me because they're already qualified. They've learned how to learn.
I've got the Clinician Academy that we've had for about 13 years now, where we typically take in anywhere from 10 to 14 students. They each bring 2 horses each that don't know my method. The horses don't know my method, so they can't cheat and bring horses already trained, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. It costs them 20 grand to come through per kid to come through the tuition. When I say kid, they're anywhere from 18 to 50-year-old people. You know what I mean? They pay 20 grand for the tuition, and that gets them 6 weeks, 6 days a week, where Jeff Davis is out there teaching them 5-6 hours a day. They've got to train 2 horses with my method. We have theory testing, practical testing, etc. And it's very, very intense. And I would say it's just an overall general horsemanship basis. Doesn't matter whether you want to be a cutter, reiner, everybody needs to know the skill set, from groundwork to riding. Just a good broke animal and a person is what we're trying to produce on the back end. I recently just had a girl that I didn't have enough horses to keep her employed all the time. One of my method ambassadors didn't have enough horses to keep her employed in the performance horse, because I actually like to ride all my own 2-year-olds. I really enjoy that. And I found the years that I've done better in the cow horse, it's the ones that I trained my own 2-year-olds, where I sat my ass on
That's
them
what Andrea
myself
says as well.
and I rode them. Okay, so I don't have enough horses to keep her busy. And I sent out a group text to a bunch of trainers and said, hey, I got one of my method ambassadors, good girl, got a lot of talent, great hard worker. You know, one of you guys need to hire her. I mean, I got about 20 texts back in about 3 seconds. I'll take her. Yeah. And one of the guys called me and he said, thank you so much. I've got this girl hired. He said, I've already got one person out of your academy that came to me, and he said, you know how hard it is to get young people that have a skill set of knowing how to start a colt, knowing how to fix a problem horse, knowing how to get around a stud. He said, it's virtually impossible. Yeah. And he said, the last one I got from you was phenomenal. I want this one as well. And he got her immediately, because he said there's such a demand for young people, but they don't have the skill sets out there.
I agree. I think that's really going to be our biggest challenge going forward. I think having great people, I think it's in the business world, hiring people, period. Yeah. But I think when I look at even the team that I have at the ranch right now, I've got a good young team. I've got a couple new young guys coming up right now underneath the 2 guys that I think are killing it. And I see they're not afraid to work. They're not afraid to learn. And boy, but they could sure use a couple years with your method. Yeah. Before they can really help me. You know, I can teach them how to rope the dummy. I can teach them how to understand what roping is, but all really they need to learn is general horsemanship, and a lot of it. And then we can teach them those skills after. Yeah.
And we usually give away 4 or 5 scholarships every year to young people that don't have any money, but they've got talent. They got talent, they got desire, and we make them try out. There's a clinic they go to where it's kind of like a tryout, like NFL. They have to go and try out. And we'll put them in front of Jeff and me. We'll watch them for 7 days and see if they've got talent and desire. We'll waive the 20 grand for them. Yeah. Does that make sense? We'll bring them in. I'll make the money back by I'll bring a couple of customers' horses in and let them train them. So I'll eventually get paid, but they don't have to come up with the money because they just don't have the money. You know, it's just that simple. They've got the ability and they've got the desire and they've got the work ethic, but they just don't have any money at that age.
What do you think, you've been in this cow industry, what do you think that you need to do to get better?
For me personally, I think I have to show a lot more to get better, and I have to do what you talked about, is try to get out of horse trainer mode more. Especially coming from such a reiner background, everything is precise, exact. I'm in a horse training mode all the time, where horse training mode, I used to say, Dean, the best broke horse wins the event. I don't believe that at all anymore. Because I've seen too many fucking horses in the warm-up pen standing up on their rear end, doing some crazy shit out there that I'm like, there's no way this guy is going to pull this off. I'll go watch him go down the fence and it'll be a big score. And I'm like, how the hell did you pull that off? When this thing 5 minutes before is, every time he pulls the left rein, this thing's standing in the air, walking across the warm-up pen. So I don't believe the guy with the brokest horse wins anymore. I believe the guy or girl that shows the judges what they want to see wins. Sure. The person that shows the judges what they want to mark, he wins. Not necessarily the brokest horse, the most behaved horse, the most soft and supple horse, etc. So for me personally, I think showing more is just got to get back in the pen. It's kind of like, you know, when I retired from touring, I had done 250 tours in my career. I can walk into a tour in front of 3,000 people and not even blink, not even be nervous. But when I did a first tour 25 years ago and 300 people showed up, I was nervous as shit to talk to 300 people. Now I could talk to 3,000 or 30,000. I couldn't give a rat's ass, but I've done it so much now that I don't prepare for it. I don't even think about what I'm going to say. It just comes out. That took practice. So I'm trying to make a genuine effort to keep showing. And the other thing I've got to do, I think, is some of the best advice that Avila gave me before he died was I sent him my futurity runs, and I had a good horse that year, and I didn't do well with it. I was really kind of down on myself. Like you said, sometimes when you get your ass kicked so much, you can get too down on yourself, and you have a little win or do better, it breaks you up. And I was kind of down on myself, and I sent him all my videos of the horses I showed and said, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what the fuck I need to do to stop marking 211, 212s and start getting 220s. And he watched them all, and he called me back, and he said, Clinton, he said, you're like an inch away from winning. You're that close. But he said, you might as well be 3 miles away from the finish line. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. How can I be an inch away from winning and beating everybody to 3 miles away from... He said, because you're always second guessing yourself. He said, I can tell when you're showing them. You're second guessing what you should be doing. Yeah. He said, just do what you think needs to be done. Fuck everybody else. Fuck whatever other trainer told you to do. Do what your gut told you to do. He said, you've been very successful in your business doing what you want to do. I've never listened to anybody else. I've run with my gut my whole career, and I've made a whole career and retired early from doing it. He said, take that mentality to training your horses. He said, I'm not saying don't have an open mind and don't try to learn something, but he said, just because it works for me doesn't mean it'll work for you. And then last year was the first year I did that. I only made the intermediate finals. I didn't make the open finals, but I made the intermediate finals. And that was the first year that I actually did exactly what I wanted to do. Now, this year I've got a 3-year-old for you, and I've got another one for me and another partner. I've got 3 this year, 2 really nice ones. Yours was one of them, and a third one that's just okay. But I am literally doing shit that I want to do. Everybody told me that you can't go down the fence and cut all on the same day. And I blend it all together now. And it's working just fine. You know what I mean? You can't circle a cow and then expect it to go cow. Well, shit, yeah, I'm doing it, and it seems to be working. So just following my own gut. Stop second-guessing myself and just do what I want to do. And if it won't work, sure, make the tweak, make the adjustment. But you can't be somebody else, because the perfect example is like different styles of horses fit different people. Andrea did a phenomenal job on that stud of yours. Yeah. It went to Sarah. Sarah didn't get much done with it. Yeah. Sarah, to me, is the best. I think she is the very best cow horse trainer in the world right now. I have that much respect for her. Yeah. But she showed that horse 3 or 4 times and didn't get shit done on it. Okay? Chris took it. He kind of just took off from day one. That horse just fit him like a glove.
It was interesting, too, because, you and I talked about it a little bit before, because I was curious. Andrea, I threw it to Andrea. I said, you're not going to go next year? He said, no, I'm not going to go. I said, well, who do you want to show the horse? You trained him. You pick. Yeah. It's up to you. And he said, I think Sarah. So, okay, I didn't see that coming. Mm-hmm. He knew I had a relationship with maybe Nick or whoever else, but he just said, he didn't really talk through it. He just said, I think Sarah would do a good job. I said, okay, sounds good. And so I'll call her up and see if she's interested. So I just, naively thought, yeah, well, Andrea knows what he's doing, and he knows the horse better than I do, and here we go. And I expected to do that as well. And then she showed him, like you said, it didn't go very good. So, when she called me, I was curious to hear what she was going to say. I thought I was going to get the same trainer, oh, man, we're going to do better next time, and we're going to get that better cow. I was expecting that, right? And so I was like, here we go. Nope, she was honest. She said, you know what? I don't fit him very well. And I was like, wow, I love the honesty. What is it? She said, he feels like a horse you've got to really push, and I like horses that feel like they're more in my hand and I don't have to push. And Chris likes those kind of push.
Yes.
Boom. Done.
Match made in heaven.
Yeah, and so you never know. But ultimately, like, you learn from these things, and you learn. And just like you could be training 3 horses right now. We don't know. We don't know how it's going to go this year. But I truly believe that you could train 3 horses, maybe one you win on, maybe one that somebody else wins on down the road. You're very good at that because they're frickin' broke when you're done. Mm-hmm. I know that. I've rode after you now. I can move them around. They're broke. It's not fake. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you right now, there's some trainers out there that they're going to cut corners and they're going to go show them, but the horse isn't broke. And for me, I'm more of a trainer mentality, so I really appreciate a broke horse.
Yeah. Especially if they won't work for me, I can send them back 100%. To you, and they'll
fit everybody.
For everybody.
Honestly,
they'll
fit anybody.
That's what Avila said to me. He said, Clinton, your horse is as broke or broker than anybody's, but he said the brokest horse won't win unless you show the judges what they want to see.
Sure.
If I don't care how I have to learn they don't care if it's pulling on you in the pen.
No.
They can't tell how it feels. I can tell how it feels. It feels like shit.
drive
Okay?
you
But they
crazy.
can't tell.
Sure.
And you have to get over that it never looks as bad as it feels.
Sure.
You know, every trainer's looking for an edge on their competition. You know, whether it's a better horse, better way to train it. But really, in reality, all the trainers have got access to great horses. All the trainers are doing a lot of the same techniques. To me, the next greatest edge on competition, whether you're reining, cutting, cow horse, eventing, or racing, is keeping your horses sound and ready for competition. For the last 4 years, I've been sparring my horses by Cold Creek Equine Spa, and I spar them for 20 minutes every day after I ride them at 36 degrees. It ices down all 4 legs. What a game changer. My vet bills have been cut back by 50%. My horse's soundness has been gone through the roof, okay? People think that spas are expensive. It'll pay for itself just on saving on vet bills in the first 18 months. Spas have been around for a long time, but for years they've been junk. They are broken more than they actually work. You needed to be like a plumbing engineer to make the some bitches work. Cold Creek Equine are using the latest technology, industrial strength machines that are basically maintenance free. Anybody can operate this thing. Even me as a horse trainer, I can operate it. And more than anything, it stays working. Go to their website, check them out. It's a game changer. In the next 10 years, if you're a professional horse trainer, if you don't have a spa, you will be left behind on your equine soundness.
Nothing would please them more than to see this old piece of shit in a coffin. Oh, they want to drive a steel knife down his stupid fucking throat, and they talk about it quite often.
Okay, guys, well, let's get to our hate mail for this week. It's piling up. This one comes from Julie. Doesn't give a last name, just Julie. I have the utmost respect for you in training horses and have used your method and it works. And it is a method that stays with the horse. Well, thank you, Julie. But, here's the but. But, have always thought you had a bias against females. And this, I think, reiterates my theory. And I wonder why. Julie, I don't have a bias towards females, Julie. Now, I just think 2/3 of you is a batshit fucking crazy. I will say that. But if you ask most women and you get women privately by themselves and you say, do you think women are fucking crazy? They'll say, absolutely, most of them are batshit crazy. Now, you got to get them by themselves and get a couple of cocktails. See, alcohol for women is truth serum. When I take a woman out on a first date, I try to get 2 or 3 drinks into her immediately because it's truth serum for women. So when you ask women, do you think most women are fucking crazy? When they're by themselves and they're not going to be judged by what they say, fuck yeah, they're batshit crazy. You put a bunch of women in a group together, do you think women are crazy? Hell no. We're not crazy at all. So yeah, I think 2/3 of you bitches are crazy, but I still love you anyway. It's what it is. I've been doing business now at DT Horses for probably almost 10 years now. And one of the things I really appreciate about doing business with them is they're horsemen first. They care about who buys their horses, where their horses go, and ultimately they want the horse to excel at whatever event it has the most natural disposition and talent to do. Sure, they raise world champion cow horses, reining horses, cutting horses, and rope horse futurity horses, but in reality, Dean Tuftin is fanatical about letting that horse tell you what event it's going to excel at. Sure, we might buy a cow horse, but it may be suited better for the rope horse futurity prospects, might be suited better for a cutter. You don't often get breeders that are absolutely fanatical about making sure those horses get the best start possible and ultimately excel in the event that they're going to do the best at. They have the most natural talent, disposition, and they enjoy that particular event. Like I said, been doing business with DT Horses now for a little over 10 years and absolutely enjoy it. One of the best places I've got to buy my horses.
For information about the athletes available, please contact the DT Horses office at 480-471-4348.
It never looks as bad as it feels.
So I got to ask you a question. So you send me videos. You're wonderful at sending videos.
Every 60 days, I send Dean a full training video on any horse I have in training. Doesn't matter what stage it's at, whether it's at 30 days riding or 2 years. I just pick one day, and that's the day we turn the camera on, and we don't shut it off. Period.
So I got to tell you, there's a couple of those videos that you've done where you're talking the whole time, especially working a cow. Recently, some of the more recent videos on the 3-year-olds, where you're working the cow and then you're literally cutting them and you're working around, and then all of a sudden you're doing some fence work and you're circling them and you're explaining yourself as you're doing it. those are the best videos I've ever seen in the cow horse. The other guys don't ever do that.
In my defense, I'm cheating a little bit here. If I'm going to take the time to videotape your horse, I'm going to turn that into club material as well.
No, I love it.
So I hire professional cameramen to come in and an audio guy. So I actually use the time to you got to see your horse anyway. Yeah. So I double dip as I use that expense to make more club videos for my club members. So that's the reason why I'm talking through everything, is I'm explaining to my club members what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, etc.
Every owner, if you're going to be an owner in the cow horse industry, just to get an opportunity to watch those videos, to understand what you're trying to feel, what you're trying to go through, because 9 times out of 10, the cow horse trainers, they don't verbalize very well. They're not even going to, they're just going to say, your horse sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks. Yeah. You know, I bred it, I bought the embryo, you know, you trained it for 2 years and then my horse sucks. I mean, no explanation. No, he sucks. You can go rope on him. Yeah. Okay. I just love that aspect of it. But I think,
and I also use it for
cool.
a third part, is I use it for feedback for me, because it's the only time I get to see my horses ridden.
Sure.
So what I do is, yes, it takes care of the owner, which is they get to see their horse, because none of them live near me, okay? Yeah. Number 2, I get to make club videos out of it, so I get to make money from it. And number 3, I get to analyze it and see it. And maybe it doesn't look as good as it feels. Maybe it looks way better than it feels, or vice versa. So I get my eyes and ears on it to where I get to see it, because sometimes they can look way better than what they feel. And you're kind of down on the horse, and then you watch it, it's like, holy shit, this thing's not as bad as I thought it
100%.
was. And then other times you're like, shit, I thought this thing looked better than what it, but it is better than what it looks. So I kind of use it as a 3-prong deal. But even though trainers may not be using it for education, I still think that they could use it for their own personal growth to see how their horses look. And it certainly turns the owners on. I will say that. I've got horses for Wagon Hound. Wagon Hound sent me the same thing. Dustin Ewing, when I sent him videos of his horse, he said, Clinton, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never had one time a trainer send me a 30, 40-minute video of an entire training session of them explaining what they did with the horse, why the horse is doing this, what they like, what they don't like. He said, oh my God, he said, that just tripped his trigger like beyond belief. He said, normally I get a 5-second text, 10 second if I'm lucky, of something cool, and that's all I get until the horse shows. I have no idea what it's doing from the meantime. You know what I mean? So I do it. I think it works good.
I like that. So going into this year, so now you've got 3 going for the snaffle bit. So all 3 of them, now you say you've got 3. They all got different characteristics, different strengths, different weaknesses. Tell me, out of your 3 right now, where you think they fit, and where you think they're going to be strong and weak.
I've got a WR, this cat's a smart filly out of a one-time Pepto mare that I got from Wagon Hound. I bought a lot of good horses from you, and I bought a lot of good ones from Wagon Hound as well. She's a typical WR, very feely, very sensitive. I feel like she's really going to cut really good. She's a perfect combination that she's very athletic, but she's not real hot. Like, she's not, you know, some of those WR fillies can get really hot. She's not like that. She's a tick on the lazier side where I can push her a little bit. Wants to stop, very good-minded. I don't feel like there's any weakness in her myself. Maybe a little short. You know, those cow horses, I've noticed, they have to be able to run. They got to be able to gallop.
Short meaning a little bit short-strided and can't get down the fence?
Yes, like she's not very big.
Okay.
And she's a little short-strided. Yep. And some of those cows can friggin' haul ass. Yeah. So unless you're in a perfect position, if you'll get outrun. Yeah. So that could be a little bit of a weakness there. But real good-minded. Your horse, he's a Hickory. No, he was a Raising the Cash.
Raising the Cash out of Hickory all the time.
Yes. He's a lot bigger horse, so he can cover a lot more ground.
Yeah.
Huge stopper, nowhere near as cowy as her, but I feel like he'll be cowy enough that if I could get a 214, 215 in the cutting, I'd be more than happy just to get through it and be clean, because he can +1 a stop and he can turn around, he can circle. I feel like I could get some hopefully good points on him in the reining, and he feels really good working a cow, circling a cow, all that kind of stuff. So those 2, and then I've got a third one that's really a big stopper, but he's really short kind of horse, not so much tallness, but short this way. He's got a short little neck on him, very stiff horse, very naturally. He doesn't get real soft and supple the way.
Do you think the short neck, obviously?
Yeah, he's got a real short neck on him, so he has trouble bending, but this thing can drag its ass. So I'm going to go with it. He's good-minded. It's not like he's a bad-minded horse. I just don't think he can bend and be soft and supple the way I like a horse to be. And the other thing I'm learning too, Dean, is just kind of like Sarah said, if a horse doesn't fit you, I will make some adjustments to myself to a point. But if I have to change my whole training program just to fit a horse, it's not going to work. Because you're not practicing what you're good at. Send that horse to somebody else. I had a Woody B. Tough filly that had a lot of talent, but I hated her. She was stiff, she was heavy. But she had talent, but she did not fit me. I sold her to another trainer. He loves her, loves this thing because his style fits her. Him and her just marry together. So I don't want to bang a square peg into a round hole anymore. If they don't kind of fit my style of lightness and soft and supple, don't beat them up. Just send them to the right place where that trainer will think, shit, this is a match made in heaven for me. You know, Andrea's the same way. He doesn't get along with a lot of mares. He'll train a lot of studs. You know what I mean? Casey Deary will get along with a lot of mares. You know, every trainer's got, I think, a particular style of horse that fits them better. So, you know, I'm not saying you can't adapt to each horse some, but I think if you adapt too much, you're not on your game. Do you agree or disagree with that? If you have to change 180 degrees.
I agree. If you can't show off your strengths, you're probably not going to be that effective. You know, I've heard everybody say, you got to work on the weaknesses. You got to work on the weaknesses. You got to work on the weaknesses. Well, Andrea told me, you know, he tried cow horsing for a couple years and they were kind of cutter heavy horses. And when he got my horse, he was very happy because he said, man, I want to be able to kick their ass in the reining. I'm supposed to be able to kick their ass in the reining. This horse is going to let me do that. And he did. He showed him 3 times. He was a top reining horse. And so that gives him an advantage. But if you lose that advantage, and he said, versus trying to make these cutters trying to rein, he said, there's nothing worse than running down there and they hit their front end and I'm 212. I said, I get it. Because that's how I feel in the rope horse too. If they're not really kind of already bought in to some degree, and you're learning that when you hand them to me, if you guys have them in your 2-year-old program, I've got a great idea. I can ride them for 5 minutes and say, I like this, I don't like this, whatever it is, but not the breaking. I don't have to worry about that piece. I can pick them as an individual what might fit my program.
I think what if you don't get them broke, I think the most important part, Dean, in any of these industries we're talking about, is the 2-year-old year. I know I get some shit when I say this, but I think actually the 2-year-old year is more important than the 3-year-old year. And I know some people laugh at me when they say that, but here's the deal. If you've ever had to train a 3-year-old that's had a shitty 2-year-old year, it about drives you to drinking. Because it's hard enough to train a 3-year-old as it is, let alone fill in all the holes that some idiot put in that horse that it's not broken its 2-year-old year. You're not only trying to train the 3-year-old year, you're trying to catch up the 2-year-old year. Where if you can have that 2-year-old year done extremely well and broke, I'm not saying the 3-year-old year is going to be easy, all of it, but it sure makes it a lot smoother sailing. And not only that, if the horse is not going to be good enough in its 3-year-old year, you're not asking yourself, is it not good enough because it's not broke? Or is it not good enough because it doesn't have the right talent? That to me, like, you know, in my program, we make the first cut of all the 2-year-olds, not just yours, but we make the first cut at 4 months. I bring them out to you and you ride all your 2-year-olds and we make the first cut, well you do, your horses, at 4 months, okay? Because we've got them broke enough that now we're not worried about how are they actually broke or are they talented. Now you can say, what does he have natural talent-wise? Will this work for where I'm trying to go? If it's not, find the horse a new direction. Find the horse something that he'll excel at. But shit, if they've been ridden for 9-10 months of their 2-year-old year and they're not fucking broke, by the time you get them at 3-year-old year, you're trying to figure out, is he not broke? Is he not very talented? Is it a bit of both? You know, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
We're living it right now. I mean, we're proof right now. We have the 3-year-olds that we're riding this year. We've gone slow all winter. Slow lead steer work, a little bit of dummy work. The horses are bought in, they're broke. We haven't really had to go back.
See, this would be the first year that I've really had your 2-year-old program.
100%.
That they've turned 3 now, correct?
100%.
And I've had horses for you over the years that I've dabbled with, but last year was the first year that we kept them all the way through their 2-year-old year and handed them back to you as a 3-year-old.
Yeah, and for instance, we have a horse, you know, headed to the sale here, the Old West sale here this week in Guthrie, and you guys rode her all this last year, the 2-year-old year. We decided she wasn't quite cowy enough to be a cow horse. We just seamlessly put her in the healing. We've been healing on her till this point of the year. She's going to the sale and she looks amazing. So it's a win-win for me because there's never a backward step. You're not having to go back. And they really learn to learn. They're ready to learn.
Whatever the horse, I always say this, what a horse learns first, they learn best. I truly believe that in my heart. What they learn first, they learn best. And I also believe that the younger the horse, the better hands you better have working with it. And even from a baby foal, you know what I mean? Even from halter breaking them. Yeah. The best hands I get to work with the youngest horses. Most people do the opposite. They put their greenest kids on the youngest horses.
We've been guilty of that
I
as
do
well.
the complete opposite of that because it seems like the earlier they are, the quicker they learn good and bad shit. They learn bad habits and good habits, but the quicker they learn, but the more they retain that information, whether it be good or bad, they retain it. So to me, that first 4 months is crucial. I'm on a big push now that you talked about young people getting into the business. The 2-year-old cutting industry has kind of had this figured out for quite some time now, but there's lots of guys that specialize in 2-year-old cutters. They make a damn good living staying home, riding 2-year-olds 6 days a week. And then December, another trainer takes them and a whole new batch comes in. They're making a damn good living. It's not looked down upon. It's not like, he's just a 2-year-old guy. Where in the reining world and the cow horse world and maybe the rope horse world, there's like this a little bit of a stigma that, you're just a 2-year-old guy. Kind of like looked down on. Unless you show, unless you win the futurities, you're not much of a hand. That needs to change. Yeah. We need to create a culture of a 2-year-old guy that stays home and rides 2-year-olds 5-6 days a week for a year. One, pay him well. Let him make a good living doing this so he's incentivized to stay there and ride 10, 15 colts a day and do a hell of a damn good job on it. You know what I mean? And so I think we need to copy some from the cutting horse industry is that create 2-year-old rope horse trainers. Rope horse guys. Create 2-year-old reining guys. Create 2-year-old... But that's all they do is focus on 2-year-olds and put that hell of a foundation on them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. 100%. I know in our program right now, I feel like it's feeling as good as it's working better than it ever has because of the time that your crew is putting on the 2-year-olds. So they move seamlessly to us.
Like Jeff Davis just went to Oswald where you do all your breeding and they keep all your horses there. Brock does a hell of a job. We just went there for 10 days. 5 of my best students went there for 10 days to do all the groundwork on all your babies, all your weanlings, halter break them, picking up their feet, flexing them, teaching them to tie up, loading them on the trailer. We're going to send you a video of each horse doing each of the maneuvers so that by the time we get to start them, we're not fighting with anything. If they need to go to the vet, they're not going to pull back and break their fucking neck at the vet clinic, for Christ's sake. They're not going to rear back in the trailer and get a foot over the manger. Just the dumb shit that horses will do. It doesn't need to happen if you'll just get them broke early. Yeah, my opinion is. I've never asked you this question, but I'd like to ask you now. Where did you ever come across me or my method? Because you followed it for quite a few years now. You used to have another guy called Jeff that used to halter break all your foals and do all the groundwork and all that. How did you ever come aware of me? Because I don't remember the first time I met you, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, so Jeff Gleason was a great guy. Worked alongside us for years. And I got acquainted with him. And he used to come up to the ranch and work all the babies. And literally just what you said. And he followed your method to a T. And so I was very aware of it because I'd read some books. So back when I was starting my own colts, I had a little video machine, or DVD is what I had, and in my little coffee room in Prineville. And I, when I'm starting my colt, I might watch a little reminder, little ground reminder, because I'd learned a lot through Ivan. And so I'd watch a little of you. And then I'd run out there and I might put that on my horse a little bit. A lot of the ground stuff. I love working them in the round pen when they're green, and I love watching how they react. And I love working young horse. I love riding 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds.
Yes, I do too.
So for me, I kind of got interested at, probably in the early 2000s, late 1990s. So you've been
following a while.
Yeah. Back when, when you had a book. I remember having a book and reading the book, right? And so then when Jeff got there, I was just all in. I said, man, we got to get our babies. We got to get our hands on them. And he was awesome at that. And very, 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 very patient. Like the most patient guy you've ever met. Super good guy. And unfortunately, he was with me for about 7 or 8 years. But he got to the age where he had grandkids, and he went home. And so now I've just kept doing it the way he was doing it. And we just moved him to your program. And I've been very lucky to do that, because I believe, like you, that first connection with the humans. Like I saw it with Nick Dowers' horse. Why are Nick Dowers' all of his colts good? Why are they not bad? Like, why did he say, oh, this one's bad? No. Because he gets their trust. He gets them bought in. and he teaches them how to learn, and he teaches them how to think. They're not all the same. They're not all easy, but he's very consistent with how he does it. And he's probably my favorite horse trainer that's out there competing, because he's just this hybrid. He can do what you do, and then he can go do what Corey Cushing does.
Yes, that's
and then he
correct.
can run his ranch and raise his kids, and I'm admirable at how he does that as well. He's just a fantastic guy. But I was able to ride several of his horses, and they were bought in. And even horses that were average were bought in. And when they're bought in and they're ready to go to work, they're a lot of fun. And so you're not always just culling them all because they're not started. You're trying to get everything involved, and you're trying to get them all to be successful. And that's what I like about your
They've all
start.
got to have a plan B.
They
So
do.
to me, if they're really broke in that first, to be honest, 12 months or, 4 months, that's when I do my first cut. They might be trail horses. They might be barrel race.
100%.
They got to have a plan B. But if they're not broke, there is no plan B for them.
Right.
They're a shitter that just goes from hand to hand to hand. Right. But if you've got them really broke, I'm very strict on the first 4 months of riding. They hardly miss any days. Like they're 6 days a week. It's a very strict regimen for the first 4 months, because I really want to set new boundaries, new rules. This is the way you get broke. And then most of the time, if you want to turn them out for 3 or 4 months after that, like we did a colt for Miles 2 years ago, Miles Baker, we had a colt for him for 60 days. He came and rode it, and he said, and he's taking it home. And I said, what are you going to do with it when you take it home? He said, I'm going to turn it out to October. And I said, why? He said, Clinton, you guys got more done in 60 days than what I could get, than most trainers can get done in 7 or 8 months. Yeah. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, we're going to literally turn this thing out, feed it alfalfa, make it grow as big as we can get it, and I'm going to bring it in October 1st and start riding it again. He said, it doesn't need to do anything else. Sure. You know what I mean? And that kind of shocked me, because I didn't know much about the rope horse industry. Because rope horse industry have a little bit shit on me a little bit. Oh, Clinton's horses are too broke. Clinton's horses are too soft. They bridle up too much. A little bit of shitting on me. So that's when I got Miles, and I said, tell me where my shit won't work for your industry. Tell me why what I do won't work for you. Because I have a lot of respect for Miles. Because Miles is a true horseman. He's a true fucking horseman, okay? He's a horseman, then he's a roper, not a roper that tries to be a horseman.
Well, and that's rare. That's
it's
very,
very
rare.
rare. And he looked at me and he said, Clinton, there's nothing that's going to not work about what you do except for one thing. I said, great. Tell me where my Achilles heel is in my program for the rope horse industry. He said, you get them so soft and so broke and so collected and so body parts and broke. He said, if it's an older guy that's a little bit heavy-handed, maybe a little bit overweight, maybe not real good with his feel and timing, he's going to jerk a little too hard coming out of the box. He's going to rest on the horse's mouth as he turns the corner. He might kick the horse a little too hard because he's, a little bit balance is not a good issue. He said your program won't work for him because he needs a horse that's stiffer, a little duller, will put up with a few mistakes. Yeah. And he said, your horses will be too responsive. He said, your program will work for great hands every day of the week. But he said, if it's not a great hand, your program, to get him that broke, will probably bite that guy in the ass. Yeah. I thought that was a valid...
No,
Do you agree with him on that?
I agree 120%. Because the more amateurs that you help and the more... sometimes they just need a good old solid horse that's a little bit stiff, but they're honest. Yeah. And honestly, I had a stud named Metallic CD, and he... Paul Hansman showed him for me, and Adon Banuelos showed him a little bit, and both of them said, Winston started him for me. Hansman did a great job. He was a high seller at Fort Worth. Winston picked him out for me, and I kind of wanted that Metallic cat on a CD mare, and I bought him, and we ended up roping on him down the road, and I roped on him, and now we had a handful of babies, probably 20 babies out of him, and they are much different than Hickory Holly Time babies. They're duller, they're stiffer, they're just better for the amateur rider. And unfortunately, a lot of amateur riders, they want to ride a nice horse too, and they see what we ride and then they want to ride them. But sometimes the best horse for them is going to be a duller, stiffer horse. Just the way it is. Yeah. But it is a breeding thing too. So sometimes falling after you guys, it might be some cow horses, or the way I'm breeding my horses, they're not fitting perfectly for the public because they're just too much horse. And they don't understand it, but you've got to educate them a little bit. But when they're super broke, at least you got a chance. Yeah. When they're not broke, you're guessing all the time.
Or you've got a way to put it in a different industry. And I think another big thing, and you mentioned Nick Dowles does this because he's got that big ranch up there. We come out to your place like clockwork for 2 weeks every January. And we ride your colts, and I bring like 30 head of horses out. I ride every 2-year-old out in the desert for 2 weeks straight. Those horses mature, Dean, in 2 weeks out in the desert, riding them out there for an hour, hour and a half, every single day for 2 weeks. They mature in 2 weeks. I get more training done in 2 weeks than what I could possibly get done in 5 weeks staying in the arena.
I agree.
There's just something about getting those colts out in those washers and around the bushes. And I spoke to Jeff about it one day, Jeff Davis, my professional clinician. I said, why do you think they get so broke? And he said, I think it's because we have to handle them so much more. He said, think about it. When we're outside the arena, we have to literally touch the reins and touch their side 10,000 times to get around every bush.
I haven't heard that, but that makes sense.
Every bush, every gully. He said, when we're loping around the arena, think about how many less times we pick up on the reins or put our leg on to lope 10 circles. But if we have to lope 10 circles out in the middle of a desert, we might be touching his face every 2 seconds, touching his belly every 2 seconds. I think that could be it.
That's interesting.
You just have to handle them so much more. We bring them up back. We tie them up like old rope horses. One thing that, I always gave the rope horse industry a bit of shit about how unbroke some of these horses were. But one thing that I always gave credit to the rope horse industry, you guys are the masters at tying a horse up. It will sit there and fucking stand there like a statue for 87 years and not even blink. Because you tie them up all the time. Right. And in a lot of other industries, people don't tie their horses up anywhere near enough. Right. And those 2-year-olds, when we bring them back, we'll tie them up for 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours. We'll hobble their front feet, and they better sit there. Yeah. And I say it to them, I want these 2-year-olds looking like a fucking old 15-year-old practice rope horse that's been roped on his whole life, and when that guy throws the reins around the prefed panel that's not even stuck to the ground and goes off to the bar for 7 hours drinking, when he gets back at 3 a.m. and he's tied the horse up with leather reins, that son of a bitch better be standing there. There better not be a hole dug in the ground. He better be sleeping.
Welcome to the rope horse world.
They do that exceptionally. I will say that.
They're not afraid to have a few wrecks too. I've seen a few panels flying around over people, and but it is funny.
That would be good.
That is.
I'm proud to be associated with you, Dean. I love training horses for you. I love that you use the other trainers, Nick Dowles, Andrea, Sarah, Chris. You're a true. You're a student of horsemanship, and I think I am myself, because we're always trying to learn. We're always trying to get better. We're always trying to tweak things every year. Jeff just got done with your weanlings, and I said to him, okay, while it's fresh in our mind, what are we going to do different next year? What tweaks do we need to make now while it's fresh? Do we need to add 2 days? Do we need to add 2 more students? Do we need to take off 2? What do we need to do to get this even better? So we're really good at our job, but I'm constantly trying to make it better.
I love that too. And I'm 55 years old, and I get excited to go to the barn every day to ride with the guys. I love passing on my knowledge too, but I want to keep getting better too. Yeah. And it's not necessarily I'm getting better as a roper. I think I'm kidding myself if I am, but I think I'm getting more experienced and I'm getting more complete as a horseman. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, and honestly, I'm around great horsemen. Yeah. That's a huge benefit, and so I thank you too. I appreciate it.
I think, too, just backing up one quick second about the 2-year-olds, I think when you really have a good 2-year-old program, 2 things happen. One, you can cull them much quicker. If they're not going to walk, you haven't got to keep them in training for 15 months to figure out they're not any good. Yeah. Okay, you can cull them quicker, and ultimately means save money.
And find a better spot for them.
But it's a better spot for them. Number 2 is that there's a lot of, I'll just call them idiosyncrasy things in the horse world, like putting boots on a horse, or some of the box stuff that ropers get into trouble in the box. It's just pulling back on fences, pulling back in the trailer. There's a lot of corky kind of behavior that people just accept. He's just corky.
Sure.
He's just like that. Or they kind of make excuses for him to be in shitheads. Yeah. And I truly believe if you get them really broken that 2-year-old year, and you put 6 days a week into them for 4 or 5 months and really put some miles under their feet, that stuff just disappears. Yeah. It's not there anymore. So I'm very curious. We only put 3 through our whole 2-year-old program. This coming next year, we're going to put all of your 2-year-olds through. I'm very curious, as we keep doing this, how much more, what I'd like to think is advances your roping. So when we drop them off in November of their 2-year-old year, I'm curious to see what changes in your rope horse program. You're clearly very successful at it. The rope horse trainers that you use are very, very good trainers, and they know how to show, and they're extremely good. I'm curious to see, does it speed up the training on the back end? Does it make what those horses would normally be doing at the end of their 3-year-old year, are they now doing in April of their 3-year-old year? You know, does it speed the process up? Does it make them better at the end? I don't know these answers. Only you will, but I'm curious to see that experiment as we keep doing this.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun part, is experimenting and kind of learning and growing and seeing what works. But I can tell you right now, you know, in the short term, the group that we did last year, the 2-year-olds that are now 3-year-olds that we're riding, we're super happy with them.
Yeah.
They're doing great.
That's awesome. Dean, if you could go back to your 21-year-old self and talk to yourself, what advice would you like to give at your age, 55? What would you like to tell yourself at 18 or 21? I'm not saying we would have listened at that age. We're full of puss and vinegar, but what would you like to tell yourself?
I think I would have got deeper into the horsemanship. I think I had an admiration for it, and I think I dabbled in it, but I was so caught up in my roping that I was scared to get too deep in the horsemanship because it would pull away from my weekend jackpots or rodeoing. But I think I would have went to work for a cow horse guy full time, probably done that. I might have ended up in that. It might have really changed the trajectory of my life, but I think I would have become a more complete horse trainer at a younger age. Instead of learning a lot of the hard lessons and, you know, riding half-broke horses my whole life, I wouldn't have accepted it.
Yeah.
I would have rode soft horses that were broke, and I would have probably had a lot more enjoyable horses throughout my career.
There is one negative to getting used to a broke horse, is that it sets the bar.
It does.
And you won't accept anything less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's one negative. When you truly ride a 2-year-old that's really had the time put in on it, it'll kind of half piss you off, because every other 2-year-old that you get on that's not that broke, you'll be like, this is a bullshit. I'm spending a lot of money doing this. Miles walked up to me when I did that colt for him, and he said, I want to send you 5 more. And I said, I made a joke, and I said, you can't afford it like this, do you? And he laughed, and he said, why? And I said, we charge $7,500 for 60 days of training on these colts. And he said, done. I'll pay it right now. I'll bring you 5 colts, and you'll do it. I said, all jokes aside, I don't have the time for them. I really don't. He rides this colt around for another 10 minutes, comes back, and he says, you're too cheap still. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I'd pay you 10 grand to do this again. I said, why? He said, do the numbers. He said, Clinton, I normally have to send colts off for 9 months till October. I spend $2,000 a month on an average training bill, board and training. He said, when I get them back in October, they're nowhere near as broke as this thing after 60 days. So even if I paid you 10 grand, I can save 10 grand and put it in my pocket and still be ahead of the game. Now, since then, of course, Ty Benson does a lot of his 2-year-olds, him and Trovos, and Ty does a phenomenal job. So I want to make that very clear. But so Ty pretty much handles all his 2-year-olds now, and Ty's horses are very brave. Ty and I work together a lot. And because he helps me go show and helps me let go of some shit, and then I help him kind of get some things broke that he needs to get broke. So we're a very good combination for each other, is that things that I'm making a big deal of, he says, let some of that shit go, and some of that shit that I think he lets go, I'm up his ass, teasing him and like, oh, you got that 2-year-old broke now in the face and broke in the body. So we're good balance for each other. You know?
I think it's interesting where it's headed, though, but Miles is spot on. I mean, the money and the time that you invest, it's no different than our kids, you know. My kids, we put them through great schools the whole time. You know, a great kindergarten, a great first grade, a great second grade. Why did that matter? Well, guess what? Now they're graduating college and they've done great, you know. And you have to be patient through that, but you have to have a good process. But when you say, I'm going to leave that 2-year-old this year, I'll get to him next year. Oh, really? You are? When he's bigger and stronger and learned how to be not broke. Okay, great. I mean, I still get a kick out of people when they tell me their 6-year-old colt or their 7-year-old colt. Oh, yeah, I'm riding my colt. And then you watch them ride and they're so unbroke, it's just a joke. And it's like, well, you know, my 2-year-olds can go 14 days with you and Jeff, and Melvin can be standing on their back cracking a bullwhip in 14 days. I'm like, this is a different level, and I'm excited about where we're going because of that. And I've got a great young trainer that's riding the 3-year-olds, and I'm riding some of them with him, and I get giddy. When he gets on them and when he's riding them and he says, here, jump on them, and I jump on them, I just grin. So it's very enjoyable.
It is very enjoyable to see him develop. Can people actually come to your ranch and buy finished trained rope horses from you guys or not?
You know, I've kind of laid back on that a little bit because I'm going through a little bit of a growth growth spurt right now, and I want to see how this goes.
Okay.
I want to train more complete horses all the way through instead of training them 80% of the way. And now, because of the growth of the futurity, I'm holding back some more horses. Just to be honest.
Because Tom and Melissa, my family, they bought some phenomenal finished trained rope horses from you that have been in your program for 5 years, and they told me they're the best rope horses they've ever had in their whole career, their whole lives. They're just, it's so easy, it's crazy.
Yeah, and those are fun horses. But yeah, I'm not in a hurry to sell them because I feel like if you get in a hurry to sell them, it might go to the wrong spot and they're just not quite ready.
Could somebody come
I enjoy
by,
doing
if somebody came by and paid you the right amount of money and said, could we leave them with you to keep developing?
Yeah, we've done that.
Okay, somebody says, I really want this 100%. Horse, but could you guys finish it? You're not against that, though.
I'm not. For the most part right now, we're mostly just training our own horses. We have done that, and it's been a lot of fun. You get to know the people, but also I love that aspect because I can educate them.
Yeah.
As they go through that process, they really start understanding what their horse is and where it is and what you got to keep working on. And that's kind of fun for me. I enjoy educating the people as much as, what this horse needs. And that's where I think it's true partnership versus, I'm not a horse trader. I don't dump horses. I never get rid of them for a reason like that. I'll keep them. I'll swallow them, use them, ride them at the ranch. We'll use them to help on. We'll do whatever, but I don't sell horses to get rid of horses.
I'm very curious. The main rope horse trainers you use now are who again?
I use a young man named Jeremy Bueller. He's a Canadian world champion team roper. He would have been the second healer to ever make the NFR after I went.
Is he the main guy that's showing
He's my
horses?
main guy. Yep.
Okay, right.
Dakota Kirchenslager runs it. He's helped me sell a few here and there. But really, my relationship with Jeremy has really, really grown in the last 3 years. And he lives in Arizona as well. So he'll come 2-3 times a week. And he's just a great learner.
Has he made any comments to you, positive or negative, of the horses he's got that come through your program that had a good foundation? Has he made any comments, positive or negative, that he's like them? Does he not like them?
Yeah, it's all positive. I mean, he's rode a lot of outside horses as well. He's got some other outside clients and stuff, but he's like, I'm all in with you, Dean. I'm all in. I understand what you're doing from start to finish, from how you breed, how your 2-year-old program is. He'll come by and we'll put him on the 3-year-olds that, a couple of the ones that you guys have started, and he can rope the lead steer, track the lead steer on him at a trot or a lope, or rope the dummy on him, and he's all in with us.
That's good.
He's a great guy.
That's great. And he's been competitive on your horses,
He's very competitive. Yeah, last year he won a lot. He was probably I'm not going to say he won the most, but I think he won around $400,000 at the Rope Horse Futurities last year.
That's awesome.
He did a very, very good job.
I've noticed that since I started doing a little bit more business with Miles Baker, I've noticed the Rope Horse Futurity guys have been coming to me saying, hey, have you got any culls? Please call me.
Sure.
Like they're calling me now wanting to say, hey, I know you get them broke. Let me have a pick of them. What's his name? Billy Jack? Is that his name?
Yeah, Billy Jack.
Billy Jack. He's got a couple of my horses now. That mare Halle Berry, we had her, and he's done very well on her. So
he's a great guy too. He works his butt
I did
off
enjoy
too.
talking with him. I don't know him well, but I've enjoyed chatting with him. But I can definitely tell he's like, hey, if anything's not working for a cow horse, please call me.
You know what's interesting with all these guys, and Billy Jack, he's come over 2 or 3 times this winter, and he bought a couple horses from me, and I just made a couple suggestions here or there, and he said, man, I want to come back. That was great. We're very good at sharing information. And I think that around, I think the cow horse guys have been that way too.
Very much so.
And I think the team roping guys, it's no secret. We're all trying to beat each other, but we're all in it together, and we're all very grateful for where it's headed and where it's going, and we have a good group of guys.
Well, Dean, I sure appreciate you. I sure appreciate what you've done for the horse industries. You've done a lot of sponsorships over the years. You've sponsored horse shows. You've spent money. You really, truly want the horses to be great and the horse industry to be great, and it's a team effort. Everybody's got to put their effort in to make this industry as great as it is. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here. I'm excited to see the future of the rope horse. I'm excited to see the rope horse industry just growing and just doing what it's doing. I'm not a roper, but I can appreciate the hard work it takes to produce these horses. And I love the fact that the prize money now is so good. A little bit of me being selfish straight on camera is I'm glad you guys can't buy them for $15,000 anymore, because it used to piss me off for years how all the ropers could come in and buy horses for 15 cents on the dollar and make them work. Now you assholes are going to pay just what we've got to pay.
I appreciate it, but it's just such a growing industry, and I'm just tickled where it's headed, and I'm excited to see where it's headed too.
Good deal. Cheers, brother. Thank you for being
buddy.
here, mate.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Today's episode was filmed and produced by Uncut Productions, marketing by Stewart & Associates, and organised and administrated by Down Under Horsemanship. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating. Follow us and stay up to date on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. See you next time, mate. Cheers.